Chapter 4:11 No Man's Land 1. Meeting. A day has passed since the first meeting event. John has arrived at Mournhold, settled in a room behind the casino, and slept in his cube, of course, for luxury's sake. "You look like a guy who had a good night sleeping?" Isha said once she saw him at the courtyard behind the casino. "I did. Why wouldn't I?" "Are you seriously telling me you didn't hear the fuss of last night?" "Nah. Gods. I hope I could sleep like you," she said. "That altmare you cracked his nuts regained consciousness last night and came to find you." "Seriously, man. His nuts?" "Never mind. What happened after that?" "He kept shouting and wanted to break in, but that ebony-clad dark elf came and shouted at him. I don't care anyway. He really is so looking forward to getting his nuts cracked once again." The casino was empty in the morning and wouldn't start operating anytime soon. The two walked in from the back door and the servants led them up where the old woman, Lonmos, the ebony-clad Dunmare and the Altmare twins were waiting for them around a dining table. "It's him." Mirren shot up from his seat once he saw John. "No need to stand on ceremony." John acted faltered. "You and me outside now?" Mirren asked for a fight. "Later." John dismissed as he sat on the other side of the dining table. "Coward!" Mirren didn't take the rejection and was about to throw a tantrum, but he felt a glare piercing through him. The old woman seemed unpleased about noise in the morning, and her two attendants were also glaring. "So, what's for breakfast?" she asked. "Kwama egg quiche," Lonmos replied. "Good, pair that with wine, I trust your choice," she said elegantly. "Wow. This lady is so refined," Isha whispered to John. "How?" John asked. "She drinks wine in the morning. Child, I drink wine all day long hoping I get drunk at the end of the day. Which never happens ever since this damn fourth era kicked off," the old woman said. "Good tolerance, I see." John smiled. "I just tasted my fair share of poisons in this lifetime. These old bones of mine never get drunk no matter what now," she said, proud of her experience. "Is that like the old masters of the Crowns of Hammerfell?" Isha gasped. "I picked the trick from them." "Sounds amazing," John said. "If you can endure an unstable stomach for a year and never get drunk for a lifetime, I can live with that." John shook his shoulder. "Mr. Krylin, will you go with the kwama dish or do you want something different?" Lonmos butted in. "I wanted some meatballs," John said while looking at Mirren. "You?" Mirren flinched in anger. "But I am a fan of things I never ate before, so let's try the kwama. And I'll go with juice. Do you have any recommendations?" "Grape. Nice. The rest?" Lonmos asked. Somehow, it felt weird for Lonmos to ask the old woman then John, and took their orders with care while lumping the rest in one go. Even the ebony-clad Dunmare frowned. As the manager of the place, Lonmos was quite the prestigious figure, but he was doing such a thing as taking orders from those two. It left a strange impression for some. As he went away, the old woman spoke. "I took the liberty to question Lonmos about you. I assure you that I was quite as shocked as him when I heard your name." "Oh, truly? Then I hope you forgive my insolence for not introducing myself openly. I am having my own predicament, as you may have heard." "Indeed, news reached us, my child. But know your secret is safe with us. Your people and my people are having a very profitable relationship after all," she said, referring to the Gwent tables. "I have noticed. So as you know who I am, can I know who you are, or at least what can I call you with, my lady?" John in a refined manner. You can call me White Cat. And please do not cringe, we Dunmare has our way of picking nicknames." "Not at all. It is a wonderful name," John said. "You like it? Of course, anything cat-related is Krylin-related. Ha. That's the spirit. Oh look, here comes our breakfast. Thank you, Lonmos." "My lady." The food was presented and John lived up to the standards of a noble. The old woman of Mournhold, who likes to go by Lady Whitecat, was an important partner in Morrowind. She may not be a big partner, but according to the deep channels of the tongs, guilds or gangs, of Morrowind, her word was heard across many tongs, and she would oversee any smuggling operation through the southern parts of Morrowind. To make it clearer, she is a mafia boss, the Dunmere Mafia. Despite being in such a position, the lady was mostly not involved in politics and distanced herself from the temple and the great houses. She is a patriot who cares for Mournhold and its people as far as she claims. The rumors about her confirm that she is always looking out for people and contributes to rebuilding Mournhold. So, as we ate and chatted, let's talk about what matters, she said. The four laborers looked at her closely. The upper parts of Morrowind are blessed with the great house's protection until Mournhold. From this point southward, no gods nor masters watch over the south. The land is no man's land. He who wants to survive must seek his own protectors, and that's why I sought you out, she said. So, the war has destroyed all the places to the south? Isha asked. No, there are people, villages and Narsi's city itself, but their situation is dire. If you see it from the southern battlements, you'll see a war-torn swampland and dark forests shadowed by death and plague. And our mission is to fix that? Miranda asked. Not fix, just do what you can to help, Whitecat said. What is the political situation for the forces in the south? John asked. You'll only find House Hlalo gathered up in Narses, its stronghold. People don't like them anymore and they were cast south to die off. House Indoril is stationed in Mournhold to make sure that House Hlalo is kept in the south and suffer all the raids of the Argonians alone. That's cruel. The loser can't complain. Other than House Hlalo, you'll find bandit kings and all sorts of nasty people of all stripes. Mercenaries, escapees from the Dunmere army, Argonian marauders, and common bandits. That's one busy party. Indeed, they are trapped between Black March, Cyrodiil and Morrowind. Where do you think they'd go? And our current job is? Mirren asked. You will work under Sir Gollum Balu right here. Whitecat pointed to the ebony-clad Dunmere. John and the rest looked at the man. Somehow, none of them liked his eyes. Sir Gollum is, John inquired. He is from the cult of Bothia and serves as the current champion of the prince, she said. Wow! A champion! While the other three gasped, John frowned. I assume that this ebony armor is the famed ebony mail, he said. Indeed, Sir Gollum replied with haughtiness. The champion of Bothia. What's he doing here? John thought. He knew the character from the game but didn't think he would meet a game character this early outside Skyrim, but one thing is for sure, he needs to tread carefully around that guy. So, where will we start? Isha asked Gollum. Lady Whitecat has given me a job to track down some of the Indoril secret movements, but it was as tricky to do the work on my own lately. I'll need to test your mettle first, he said. None of the four commented. First off, they were not laborers for show. Every one of them is a capable fighter that went through thick and thin to get here. That's why they didn't complain about Galen's attitude. Complaining is for the weak. One problem though, Galen said and looked at John. The keeper of the ebony blade stays, we don't need him. Everyone looked at him and frowned. Just by looking at John, anyone could realize how an amazing fighter he is with his height and power. It is not an offense or anything. We all know how the ebony blade gets its power, so we are not comfortable with working with you. Legends say that those who wield the blade are ruthless killers who may turn on their comrades. I guess you should understand. It is fine. I am not planning on using the blade anyway, I have better weapons. John dismissed it. Huh? Perhaps you don't know? Mirren looked at John with a funny face. Don't know what? John asked. Krylin, what labor is this for you? Whitecat asked. The 6th. Then which labor did you get the blade on? The 5th. Seriously? Isha frowned. Normally, you get the weapon on the first or the secret is labor. Nah. My first labor was to assist you with the Shivering Isles, my second was to save my brother, my third was to escape Cold Harbor, my fourth was to save my home, and the fifth was to collect the blade. Now I'm at the sixth, John said. Hey, what sort of bullshit is that? Mirren asked. Get to the point, John said. He means that the word save in a labor is not something usual. It is either a punishment labor or a high-purpose labor. Isha explained. Now that I think of it, the second and the third were punishments while the fourth was a high purpose. Then you got your weapon labor and how you are in a service labor? But that's too much punishment. How did you offend the Daedra? I'd really rather to keep that to myself. It seemed that the labors had their own types as well. John didn't hear about any of that from that bitch priestess Arania. Anyway, you were saying something I don't know, John continued. Right? To finish your labor, your weapon is the answer. Not using the weapon is a straightforward failing the labor. You can be our guest if you don't mind, Mirren said. But Krylin is very strong even without the blade. You can't even see through his full power if he goes all out, Isha said, siding with John. That time, it was the silent Miranda who replied. The labors are the games of the Daedric princes, and they set its rules. Not playing by the rules means you are angering the Daedra, human. Think about that before you do something we all regret, since this labor binds us all. Her words were sharp but true. John may have planned to ignore the blade for the sake of not alarming others, but it seems his choices were limited from the start. I see. Thanks. John nodded. I still have a say. White Cat spoke. I disapprove of you not acting as a full unit. I don't care how you operate, but I want you to move together. The keeper of each Daedric artifact must know its powers and curses and should adapt to it. Gollum, you are not leaving him behind. The old woman's tone was strict and dominating. Gollum, who is a strong man, couldn't even voice any complaint towards her. Yes, my lady. The job I am giving you first is to know why in Oblivion is House Indoril moving in the south. I want to know everything without alerting them, and if you kill someone then make sure it looks like an accident. Yes. Now let's, oh my. As the old woman was giving the last set of instruction, someone jumped in the meeting. Oh, here you are. Look, I saved you some food, John said. Nefertiti somehow magically appeared on the other side of the table. She ran towards John and rubbed his hand on the table with her side and tail as a sort of appreciation before checking what's on his plate. Is she yours? The old woman asked. Not mine. Mostly I am hers, but she is my trusted partner, John replied. Get that thing out of here, Gollum Balu said. 2 pairs of eyes landed on Gollum with cold, murderous glares. The first was naturally John, while the second was the old woman. Somehow, the killing intent caused Gollum to feel as if a mountain is falling on his head. Are you a puppies-loving heathens? John and the old woman's voices overlapped. Not sure how, the two looked at each other with eyes wide open. Lady White Cat? You are a cat cultist too? Krylin? You are the same? The two couldn't believe it and checked if the fabric of reality is not knitted or entangled by the mighty holy cat. After 43 years for John, past life included, and a few hundred years for White Cat, the two found another follower of the same faith. Chapter 412, No Man's Land 2-3. Double chapter again. Part 1. As exciting as meeting a fellow cat cultist, the old woman of Mournhold was a serious and a classy person who focused on what matters. She requested to pat Nefertiti right away. Somehow, Nefertiti didn't hate her at all and sat on her lap for a while before getting annoyed by the noisy mortals around her and deciding to take a nap in John's shadow. The team, on the other hand, was gathering at the back courtyard based on the request of White Cat to exchange pointers. the champion of Bothia, Gollum Balu, the laborer of Azura, Krylon, the laborer of Bothia, Isha, and the laborers of Mephala, Miran and Miranda. Gollum was always in the ebony mail, a Daedric suit of armor created by Bothia. The ebony mail, Daedric. A muffle move quietly. Impenetrable, magic and physical protection. Poison cloak, poison nearby enemies. The A terrifying artifact indeed. Miran and Miranda had the Ring of Khajiit and the Bow of Shadows, associated with Mephala and Nocturnal. Ring of Khajiit, Daedric. A fortify speed, move faster. A muffle move quietly. A invisibility, activable effect. Bow of Shadows, Daedric. A fortify speed, move faster. A muffle move quietly. A invisibility, activable effect. The two artifacts surprisingly have two matching effects. It would be a real pain trying to fight that. Isha had the terrifying Spear of Bitter Mercy, associated with Herson and Shiagarath. The Spear of Bitter Mercy, Daedric. A reflect received blows. A conjure storm Atronak. A fortify spearmanship enhance the skill to perfection. The spear was indeed some terrifying force on its own and in any hand. Finally, there was John and his ebony blade. The ebony blade, Daedric. A awakening, sharpen the blade and empower the enchantments by the blood of deceit. Progress. 1/10. Absorb vitality. Absorbs enemy's vitality to heal the user. A fortify swordsmanship, enhance the skill to perfection. John has managed to unseal 1/10 of the power when he killed the Morag Tong agents in Whiterun. In the end, those people who wield these artifacts are going to spar and compare skills. The old woman of Mournhold prepared a large courtyard just for this event and sat on the side with a glass of wine to watch. "Hey Nord. Let's do it now." Miran called for John. "Sure." John didn't even refuse. "Wait." Gollum stopped the two. "There are rules here and you only fight when I tell you to fight." "None of your business." Miran lashed at Gollum. "Sure." John, on the other hand, went to sit with White Cat. "Tisk." Miran retreated with a twisted face beside his sister. "It's okay, we'll take them down together as we always do," Miranda quietly said. "Redguard girl, you and me?" Gollum called for Isha. Apparently, he was trying to set hierarchy to set himself as a leader above the laborer. Between John and the Altmare siblings who were all above the threshold of 2 meters, the Redguard Isha seemed more manageable. She held the large spear and stood in the middle of the courtyard. Gollum carried a shield covered with an ebony plate and an ebony sword that seemed to be enchanted by a strong fire enchantment. "This guy is obsessed with ebony," John said. "He is. The ebony is quite rare, but you will find a lot of it in Morrowind. As the champion of Bothia and keeper of the ebony mail, he wants to live up to the reputation," White Cat said. "Let's see." Gollum faced Isha and their battle spirits collided before they actually do. The auras of the two were sharp and refined but not advanced or manifested. His aura was a flame aura and hers was a shock aura. In a second they were standing still, and in the next, they were in front of each other waving their weapons. A wave of the sword was blocked by the metal shaft of the spear, then the power was reflected from the spear tip to the body of the shield. The two jumped away from each other after then. Nice, Isha complimented. Humph. Gollum was not expecting a spear user to fight well in a close melee, and seemed upset. He seemed to be having some bad idea in his mind as he sneered visibly. Remember, kids, this is a spar. Don't use lethal tactics. White Cat said. Gollum's smile went away. John was sure Gollum was going to use the poison cloak, property of the ebony male, and White Cat was quick to notice it too. Gollum and Isha maintained a certain distance as they tried to assess one another based on the moves from a while ago. Gollum was swift and sharp, so Isha didn't want to engage in close melee a lot. Far melee was her forte, and she can go even faster. From her position, she stabbed straight at Gollum, who took the hit with his shield. Unlike the usual, the spear had an advantage here because of its Daedric origin. It may even penetrate the shield in a few hits. From her position, she masterfully held the spear and attacked many times with absolute accuracy, making Gollum hot on heels and rendered his shield useless with many dents on the ebony plate. You think you're the only one who can fight like that? Take this. Gollum threw his shield away and held the sword with two hands. He infused his aura and slashed with all his might. A large fire slash was unleashed from his blade and hurled at Isha. She lowered her posture and aimed her spear down, then waved her spear at the coming attack. As none could expect it, the fire slash was reflected by the spear back at Gollum. He clenched on his teeth and cancelled his own attack. The two recognized each other's strength but still couldn't tell who is stronger. My turn, Isha said as she hit the ground 3 times with the end of her spear. The void opened and 3 creatures walked out. You've got to be kidding me, Gollum said. Those things were, of course, Atronachs. However, they were storm Atronach wolves. Get him. Isha pointed at Gollum, and her hunting wolves charged at him. Gollum had to move faster now. He wasn't only facing Isha alone now, and she forced him to use armor and sword to their full power. Flame slashes and storm Atronachs started to fight, and the place turned into chaos. Fire and lightning kept going on and on against each other, and the two were well matched, at least based on what they showed. None would use his trump cards in a spar anyway. Good. That's enough. White Cat spoke, and the two stopped fighting. This was a good show. Really interesting skills we saw there. Isha child, that Atronach animal magic is a Dureni magic. May I inquire where you learned it? She asked. A friend showed me the trick, Isha said and looked at John. I see. Off to the next fight then. John stood up and took out the ebony blade. He walked to the center of the courtyard and summoned Greed, in a coat form, and put on Krylon. With the ebony Nodachi on his shoulder, he was in full readiness. An ebony mask, an ebony blade, and a void cloth robe? Nice style. White Cat said. Thanks. Now, Altmare. We are fighting. John called out Mirren. Mirren and Miranda stood up together and faced John, the two of them. Wait, I am fighting you two at the same time? He asked. Yes, if the lady doesn't mind. My brother and I always fight as a duo. Miranda spoke to White Cat. I have heard about Krylon's skill, so if he is okay with it. I am okay. John took them on. Mirren and Miranda seemed to be an interesting duo in combat. The two looked exactly the same, even their bone frame was incredibly matching. Also, Miranda was flat, which contributed to the appearance. With the same golden hair and skin as well as the same green eyes, John was one of the few who can tell them apart, and even telling that the girly-looking Mirren is a male. How did he do that? Simple. Females of all races have vital anuic energy, while males have vital podomic energy. John was a pro when it came to detecting such a thing. What is more interesting was how the two didn't dress like regular Altmare, and wore plain clothing with hoods and face covers instead. John can tell that the two are good assassins. Begin. Part 2. With the signal, John blinked from his place in front of the two siblings right away. With his left, he clutched on Mirren's neck and raised him up. The two siblings couldn't even react in the right time, but Miranda retreated too fast and fired 3 arrows at John, who used Mirren as a meat shield. The arrows curved in the air and crashed on the ground. Miranda could clearly curve her shots mid-air by her will. She is an arcane archer. Mirren had to break free from John's hand. He put his right leg on John's arm and kicked at John's chin with the other. John had to stop the left with his hand, but Mirren was already casting a spell at John's face. John could pull out a trump card, but he preferred to just disengage and threw Mirren away. Damn it! Mirren landed on the ground with a flip and was about to pull out his daggers, but he switched to a longsword. That was where he landed. Good choice, White Cat complimented. It was impossible to face the ebony blade with just daggers. One needed some reach. Now, the Altmaier twins signaled to each other and vanished from their places. I see. So that's your tactic. The two must use the muffle and invisibility to erase their presences. Fine, let's do this. John carried the ebony blade seriously with both hands. Do you think a rusty dull blade can do anything against us? John heard a voice in his head. Telepathy, huh? Sorry, but you got the wrong opponent. System, put them on an ear-piercing tone. Confirmed. What is happening? I can taste my own thoughts. Mirren fell on the ground and held his head. Told you. John sneered as he saw Mirren go out of his stealth. Just as he was about to walk to him, a barrage of arrows hurled at him. John didn't take any chances and waved the ebony blade at all the arrows, blocking them one by one. Once or the secrets of the ebony blade was its invulnerability, so John can pretty much abuse it as he sees fit. Miranda wasn't giving John any chance to attack Mirren and kept him away until her brother stopped the telepathy attack and went back to stealth again. John let loose of his aura and its unique blood-red color overflowed like a flood. Once he slashed at every direction, shooting red energy crescents, but he couldn't hit the Altmaier twins. The two went completely into hiding. Fine, let's play cat and mouse. John stood still and focused his senses on the surroundings while holding his blade in a midguard. Hidden from view, Mirren and Miranda were barely keeping their breath in order. The attacks from a while ago made them jump around like monkeys. The two were quite the skilled assassins, and they have zero reputation, which is what an assassin should have. No one ever heard about the duo Altmaier, who kill while being invisible because they leave no witnesses or targets to tell a tale. Their work is also very clean. With such a skill, the two possess terrifying talents, coordination, and their looks made them untraceable. Only the ones who raised them know of their secrets until they gained the attention of the Daedric Prince Mephala. Finishing the labors wasn't that hard for them, but they were out of their comfort zone and had to work with strangers like the old woman of Mournhold, John and the rest who had to know of their secret style. Now as they faced John, they could never think of a worse match. He was not just resourceful and highly skilled, but his senses and detection were on another level. Each wave of his aura just a moment ago was almost a sure kill if they didn't dodge, as if their lives were depending on it. We need to get closer and hold his big movements, Miranda said. He is a brute and he is more skilled than us in magic, Mirren replied. We need to fight him on our terms. Do you have a plan? Let's play him around. Miranda had a tactic in mind and shared it with her brother. John was trying to sense the Altmaier twins, but the power of invisibility and muffle granted by the Ring of Khajiit and the Bow of Shadows were the real deal. As he was thinking of a tactic, his acute senses detected a very faint killing intent, and he waved his hand to deflect an arrow with his aura. Another sharp trace came from behind him, so he blinked to the back and waved his sword only to hit the air. He can defend, but he can't attack on this rate. Accurate arrows and sharp attacks came from many directions and John defended perfectly, but the Altmare twins were already as far as they could get once he counters. John sighed and took off his mask. This is annoying. I admit it, you are good at hiding. But not too good. Nefertiti. Nefertiti appeared on John's shoulder. Her strange appearing effect coming out from the shade caused the people around to be alarmed. I want you to possess my eyes. John's request was strange, but Nefertiti had no problem. She put her paw on John's head and disappeared in shadow. On John's face, a black patch covered his eyes and his pupils turned into that of a cat. His vision changed and viewed that of the shadow realm. I see you now. John's tone and appearance caused a cold shiver to run through the brother and sister. John was looking right at them. Here's Johnny. The next thing they know was John charging full force at them. Mirren put his guard on and received a heavy attack from John causing him to stagger and his sword and fly away. As John tried to follow, Miranda shot another barrage of arrows at him. Annoying. John aimed his hand and shot a blast of raw magicka at Miranda that made all her arrows be useless. He then charged at her, but despite that, she took another arrow and calming aimed at him. Humph! John waved his blade's dull side at her, but somehow, she disappeared from her place and Mirren appeared in her position while stabbing at John by a dagger from a point blank, while an arrow hurled at John from the back. They too have exchanged positions. John's blade was too big to use in this situation, so he discarded it without a second thought and held Mirren's hand while waving Great in a coat form to take the arrow for him. Without his strange, and at this close range, John and Mirren started another kind of fighting. Their hands moved like the wind, and one tried to stab or disarm the other. Their speed was almost 4 exchanges per second, and the two were hell-bent on taking the other down. In the end, John had the advantage and forced Mirren backward after a couple of clean punches to his abdomen. Mirren entangled hands with John, then nimbly climbed on John's leg and launched himself away. Now! He shouted, and Miranda let loose of another barrage of arrows. Tisk! John became annoyed and stood between Miranda and Mirren to force her to stop shooting. As she did, he went after Mirren once again. By now, the invisibility was off and the fight was completely seen to the others, not just John hitting and kicking air. Damn it. We can't take him on like that. 2-on-1. John engaged in another unarmed melee with John. The two were experts in martial arts. I have never seen a martial skill this good before, John complimented. Yours is annoying but good too, Mirren couldn't help but acknowledge. They took distance before engaging once again. Mirren took a big step and jumped, performing a flying double kick. John took one large step to the left and kicked Mirren from the side. Miranda couldn't shoot from afar anymore, so she threw away the bow and attacked John's foothold while he was kicking. John's kick was successful, but sensing Miranda sliding at him made him jump up high by one leg and retreat behind her. She was already up and attacking him with a hand attack. She wasn't using punches but rather small claws attached to her special glove. John defended himself by directing her attacks sideways until Mirren joined the fray. 2 fast kicks from the side toward John were blocked by an equal power from his palm attack. Everything they threw at him was redirected by his hands while he kept an excellent footwork and timing. Mirren was attacking John's upper half and Miranda was attacking the lower half. The three were at the climax of their speed and the onlookers were holding their breath. One thing John noticed in the two siblings' coordination, and it was that the two highly depend on each other, complete each other's moves and cover each other's mistake. John knows 2 people who can fight like that, and these were his father Johnrad and his uncle Tyr. They once told him that their mentor was the only person who would defeat them as a pair by knowing their mistakes and using it against them. So to break the perfect coordination between Mirren and Miranda, John needed to see their style and analyze it. And here it came. There was the moment when the two fall from coordination and attack at the same moment, without checking the other's balance. Miranda was kicking at John from the front and Mirren was performing a roundhouse from the side. The two were off balance and usually Miranda had an easier retreat. John didn't bother with her at this moment and focused on Mirren. He grasped Mirren's leg and pulled him towards him fast. Miranda panicked seeing her brother completely falling towards John, and her only thought was to push John away so her kick had to reach. At that moment, John's plan worked and he had Mirren between him and Miranda. Miranda's attack landed on her brother but something went completely wrong. Miranda's kick was directed to John's abdomen and Mirren was being pulled so his position was unbalanced. Once Miranda's kick landed, it was a bullseye to yesterday's hit spot. Mirren froze while holding his crotch facing his sister. He then fell on his face in agonizing pain. "Brother!" Miranda panicked and didn't know what to do. Whoops! John was not sure how that was so accurate. The others saw that and Isha came over. Gods, he had it again. She kinda felt sorry for Mirren. The others were not sure what to do but the servants were already ready with an ice pack. "You!" Miranda looked at John with absolute anger. "Hey, that wasn't my fault." John didn't want to be blamed for this too. "I don't care. This is for Mirren." Miranda charged at John with anger, faking a bunch, and kicked a low blow. Everyone in the place was shouting to stop her but her kick landed. Now looking at her leg, somehow and for some reason, it was completely snapped in the wrong direction. She fell in her but silently as the pain took a while to reach her brain. She looked up at John whose figure covered the sun behind him. Well, look what you have done. Ever heard the slang balls of titanium? That was 2 of them. That was the last thing Miranda heard before she passes out. Chapter 413 No Man's Land 4. The team had some employment drama to deal with. "Hey, my face is up here." "Oh, sorry." Normally, the first sentence would be said by a girl to a rude guy staring at her feminine assets, but the situation was reversed in this case. Ever since Miranda broke her leg trying to kick Little John, somehow, everyone kept staring at where Little John is for the past week. "Hey, I just want to ask a question," Isha spoke. "As long as it is not about Little Krylin, then don't bother asking," John said. "You really fine. Just why do you keep such a thing a secret?" "What thing?" "Your little brother. It can break a mountain at this rate." "Hey, stop spouting nonsense. I was just using an armored plate at the spot." "Huh. Who would believe that?" Isha dismissed John's answer. Indeed he was lying. John has refined his bones and skin to the peak of humanity. Unless it is some sort of specially enchanted weapon for piercing like the Spear of Bitter Mercy, or Maroon's razor. Nothing can really wound him, especially when he uses his aura. One of the reasons why John only uses greed as armor and passed the Savior's hide to Ela. "By the way, where are the other 3? No signal yet?" John asked. "No. These elves are not your best fans anyway, so they lump us together all the time," Isha said, annoyed. Sorry about that." The two were sitting on a large tree overlooking the road between Mournhold and Narses. It was dead night and the two were good at hiding. "So, how were your advances on Mirren?" John asked. "Not good." Isha groaned. "Oh. I told you before, stop creeping the guy every time you meet him." "I don't creep him." "You smacked his butt?" "By mistake." "You peep on him." "Wrong place, wrong time." "You cornered him to a wall when you were drunk." "Fine. I did all that. I like cute boys, not some muscle freak like you," she said as she threw the wineskin at John. "Dude, I know it is hard to find cute boys in this day and age, but take it easy. You will have a million chance to save your prince in distress and be the gallant damsel." "Wait, shouldn't it be the gallant prince and the damsel in distress?" "Are you trying to say that girls can't be gallant?" "Who said so? One day I'll introduce you to my wife. Pray she doesn't hate you on the spot." Whatever, man. Just help me with Mirren this time. Okay. Thanks. Hey, here it is, one of them is out? As the two found what they were waiting for, John focused right away. Won't you wait for the others? She asked. Just give them a signal that we found a way in once I infiltrate, John said and quietly jumped off the tree. He hid behind a large mushroom tree and waited for the target to arrive. A minute later, an Argonian brute appeared around the area and seemed to be out to water the flowers. As he was getting started, he heard a swift swooshing sound and the world darkened around him. The head of the Argonian fell on the ground and John picked it up. He hid Maroon's razor back in his pocket and took out a potion flask. Here goes nothing. John checked the Argonian's appearance, then swallowed the potion in one go. Little by little, he started transforming to the Argonian's appearance. It turns my stomach every time I see you do that, Isha said. Just keep watching. The tail. It hurts. It fucking hurts every damn time. He changed his clothes and got used to his body before turning around and walking to where the Argonian came from. 50 meters from Isha's position, John entered a small encampment of Argonian marauders. They looked at him and didn't seem very impressed or moved. The same guy who went out to take a piss is the same guy who returned. Hey, gather around. I have found something. John suddenly called to the bandits. Jazz, what is it? The other Argonians gathered around, some out of curiosity, and some looked bored. I have found this blade. John, in disguise, took out the large Nodachi blade from the cube. What is that? Looks a bit rusty? Is that ebony? No, stupid. Ebony never rusts. Maybe some old Telvanni antique or something. The Argonians started arguing. Well, none of that is true, John said. It is an Akaviri Nodachi or Odachi. The first means field sword and the second means great or big sword. That's just the shape, but the origin is really different and it is really ebony despite the rust. Oi, Jazz, when did your wise, scaly ass become that of a scholar? Ha ha. Sigh. Ignorance. Anyway, it is about time you all gathered around. I really hope that the relationship you guys had with me so far was good and you will never hold a grudge against me. What is that, Abu? Swoosh. Let's get ridiculous. John waved the ebony blade around like the wind and beheaded all those in his reach. About 7 heads rolled on the ground with smiling expressions freezing on their faces. The ebony blade is a blade of deceit, and those who are killed by it die with a smile on their faces if they were on good terms with the user. Jazz, have you gone mad? The Argonians saw the scene of their comrades getting killed by their comrade, and their reverse scales twitched. Sorry guys, I really hold nothing against you. This is just as you see it, me killing you for no reason. Stop. I said STO. As an Argonian who looked like the leader came out, John teleported behind him and thrust the ebony blade all the way through, then took it out so fast that a fountain of blood gushed out from the leader. No. This is not right. This blade, it is evil. An Argonian shaman seemed to have sensed the whispers of Mephala from the ebony blade, and shouted in affright. You have some keen senses? John waved the sword, splitting the Argonian from head to waist. Stop him! Kill him! The bandits rushed from all sides at John. He thrust the blade to the side, sticking it in one, then waved the corpses with the blade, and created an opening to retreat. An Argonian chased with a large axe, but John's slash crushed the axe and its user. Another jumped from the side with a dagger, rushing to John's vitals, but John swung the blade, and the Argonian's vision split. Another charged with a thorny shield, but John took him on by jumping over and beheading him in the process. Each Argonian tried to attack John was just slashed at by the sword, then limbs and heads flew from their bodies. The beauty of it was the blood strokes. The ebony blade was not just a simple weapon, it could heal John, and with a small trick John can add a bleeding effect to the blade. Each body beheaded had a gush of blood coming from the neck, each limb, each stab, every swing were all lethal. By the time it ended, the rust on the blade was all gone and the sharpness increased. Bah! I can feel their agony, their shock for betrayal swelling in my blade. A moan came from the blade insinuating the conscience of John. Equals. The ebony blade, Daedric. Awakening, 3/10. Absorb vitality. A fortify swordsmanship. Equals. Well, it has been a week and I only awakened 2 digits of the seal. It is getting harder. John had to use the hard method to cultivate the ebony blade. Not all blood of deceit is equal. If one used the blood of their family, then the blade will awaken in no time. To understand the principle behind it is to understand who Mephala is. She is the prince of assassination and also genocide, courtship and orgy, tact speech and poetic. These spheres made Mephala known as the Daedric prince of sex and murder, but that was an understanding or rather an underestimation, a fatal one. Mephala is the web spinner that connects the strings between mortals. In other words, she is the Daedric prince of all sorts of relationship. One can't even imagine what will happen if a social media got introduced to the current-day Tamriel with the existence of Mephala. The blade works by feeding on the strings of Mephala. The thicker the string, the more power it holds. That's why John not only changed his appearance but interact with his victims using the faces he gained to make a relationship of any kind before he kills. It is not as effective as other methods and takes a lot of time, but it is the safest so far. John looked around himself admiring how the blade made a great massacre. Goddamn it, Krylin. He did it again? Outside the encampment, some voices could be heard. John hurriedly returned to his appearance and awaited. It was Isha, Gollum, Mirren and Miranda. Sup, guys? Look at this place, it's as if Sheogorath himself passed from here just a second ago. John said with an innocent face, which was also stained with lines of blood. Krylin, what was the plan? Gollum asked with an angry tone. Oh, Captain! Didn't see you there, you shouldn't dress in all black at night. John, who was in all black, replied. What was the plan? Gollum repeated. Something signal buzz beat them. I may have skipped to the beat them part. And maybe I killed them all. You left no prisoners. Well, you know, Captain, the blade is a bit demanding. I finally got to remove the rust and get the blade nice and sharp. John showed off his blade to Gollum. The two were completely clashing with each other for the past week. John didn't like the champion of Azura for personal reasons from the game, and Gollum didn't like John challenging him around every turn. When I say something, you better listen or… Gollum started making threats while pointing at John. Or what? Frankly speaking, will I get good behavior points if I acted like I care? The plan was to come here and kill the fuckers, why keep watching them for a whole damn night? John replied with a cold tone. The two seemed to be ready for a fight. As a superhuman as John is, Gollum had the ebony mail and didn't fear John, even the ebony blade is not sharp enough to go through the ebony mail. Okay, you two need to calm down. Isha went in between the two. He is your partner, control him, and search the camp for any letters or evidence. Gollum said and walked away. The five kept it silent from that point on. Gollum, Isha and Mirren started looking around. What's up? John winked to Miranda. She just stood there ignoring him. Say, that guy Gollum, is he okay with you as a partner? Just asking. If you don't mind telling, then okay. Are you always this aloof? Sigh. It is about time I say sorry for the sparring day. I was putting a codpiece, crotch armor, just in case your brother tried to crack my nuts. Turns out we should be wary of you. Miranda didn't reply again, but John noticed that her lips arched up a little. "Fine, I won't bother you," John said and turned away. "I don't like the way he looks at me." Out of the blue, Miranda spoke. "Oh." John didn't expect her reply, so he turned around only to see her go away. I see." John looked around and reached to his pocket. He took out a bloody piece of paper he salvaged just a while ago. "Hey, I found something!" He then called out, raising his hand up. The others looked at him and came closer. Gollum opened his hand, demanding the letter. "Looks like the great house in Doril is tipping the Argonian marauders on the supply wagons that travel from Mournhold to Narses. This nickname on the letter is the same one from the shell company that the Indoril use for shady business." John seemed to have immersed himself with the letter before handing it to Gollum, who snatched it away. This is bad, we should report to the old woman," Gollum said. "My thoughts exactly," John replied. "What do you mean by that?" "Nothing in particular. I don't think I am here to tell you your job, so don't bother with me." "We didn't hire you to think, Nord." "Great, so don't make me feel like it's a vacant role." The two went in another argument. "For fuck's sake, let's go home." Isha became fed up with the argument and left, first follows by the Altmare twins, then Gollum. "Your mess to clean up," Gollum said and left. John stood in his place with a smile. "Nefertiti, did you do what I asked?" he asked. "Yes." Nefertiti, in the child form, appeared while dragging a large sack with something quivering in it. John pointed the cube ring in his hand toward her and the sack and took them in. A mischievous smile appeared on John's face as he snapped his fingers and set everything on fire. Chapter 4:14 No Man's Land 5-6 Enemies on Every Corner. Another double chapter. Happy International Cat Day, that was yesterday, and Happy Big Eid, that's tomorrow. Part 1. Days passed and Mournhold turned gloomier. The spring fevers made the city feel a bit sickly, especially in the southern Plaza district, where the refugees have their slums. The old woman's tongue kept making some charities here and there to maintain the order around their areas and recruit able men. Isha and Gollum were doing many runs around the city to secure the warehouses of the gang's resources, while Mirren and Miranda were stationed as the old woman's guards. John's job was to secure the perimeters and handle the public relations around the casino. Thane John. "I'm not a Thane, Lanmas. Sorry, kinda a habit. Anyway, our network has detected some of the Indoril guards around the bazaar. Seems like trouble is coming," Lanmas said while handing a letter to John. Not an opposing gang this time? I say it is a tip from another gang. Can we rely on you? Easy. What does the old cat think? She said to make it clean. We don't want a great house to publicly hostile to us, not so soon anyway. You think the Indoril will prosecute the white cat publicly? The old woman has more popularity than them around. They'll use an underhanded method if they involve the faction, if the temple that supports them, Lanmas said with a worried face. Sigh. Look at us, two Nords worrying about Dunmere politics. John laughed. Currently, Dunmere politics is our lifeline. So, how many men will you take? None. Let me have my way with the Indoril guards. Oh, the mighty John Dare is showing off some moves? Haha. I will just mess around. John walked the street away from the casino to the entrance of the bazaar. There, he found a few patrols of Indoril guards dressed in their weird helms that represent the Hortator, Indoril Nerevar. John looked closely and assessed the guard skills. Unlike the normal city guards, the Indoril guards are elite soldiers with years of experience that outnumbered John's age in Tamriel. Taking them on while maintaining a secret identity will be a challenge. John checked his stash of transformation potions, and luckily there were many. The normal days he doesn't need to transform. He keeps the potions in spare flasks. Now was the time to use another. Despite being untasty, the potion was very abusable. John transformed into a Dunmare form right away with a regular height. A few minutes later, he ambushed an Indoro guard and knocked him down, taking his armor and weapon. He then walked the streets with a straight back and a haughty face until he met other Indoro guards. "Hey, Paul, is that you?" John said, waving his hand to a guard. "Paul?" The guard looked at John, trying to identify him. "Yes, a few Pauls are here with you. I just ran into one on my way here." "Who are you?" The guards frowned. "It's me, Steve. Don't you recognize me, Paul?" Somehow the Indoro guards were wary of him, but realizing that he must be drunk, they changed their attitude. "Who's your commanding officer? We should report you for lollygagging on work hours," one guard said. "And why would I do that? I thought they only gag lollies in Skyrim." Never mind. Before I head out, mind telling me why the whole lot of you are gathered here?" John asked. "You don't even know that? Where were you last night?" The guard asked suspiciously. "Out drinking. I have a leave for personal reasons." John kept the bullshit on with a normal attitude. "Personal reasons? First time hearing that. Where did you say you are from again?" "I didn't." Sadly, those guards were hard to trick. Even though John's act was somehow passable in other places, elite guards like them deserve their title after all. The guards in front of John looked at each other and agreed that John is a spy. "Fine." One of them spoke. "We are here for a criminal tong bust. Now, mind telling us what you are here for?" "Oh, so you are the guards on that bus thing? Are there any more of you?" John didn't even bother acting anymore. "Humph. You'll know soon. On your knees." The Indoro guards surrounded John, and one put a hand on his shoulder. "Oh, I hoped you'd do that, Paul." John smiled widely. He grabbed the hand of the man and twisted it while kicking his legs, resulting the man to fly in a whirl before falling on the ground. "Catch him!" The other guards were triggered right away, and a fight started in the middle of the market. John kicked to the back, then to the front, sending two guards away from him. One attacked from the side but was restrained down by John from the arm, and got a knee to the ribs. "Chow. Shit. Use weapons." The guards realized that John won't go down without lethal force and drew their swords. In an instant, John has closed the distance to them. He used a combination of fast punches to take down the remaining 7 guards and made it look loud. As the last Indoro guard fell down, the market has already fallen to chaos and all the shops sealed its doors. Once the main force arrives, the place will become a bloodbath. Still, seeing the Indoro guards fight each other was very unusual, as it seemed that one of them has gone rogue. Heavy footsteps came from the alleyway leading to the market, and the Indoro guards flowed out in numbers. Once they saw a fellow guard standing in a pile of fallen fellow guards, their captain spoke right away. "Guard, report. What happened here?" "Yes, Captain," John said as he ran towards the captain, and as soon as he arrived. "Reporting to your mother, you Indoro bastards owe me 3 months of pay, and you claim to be righteous? Shame on you." John held the captain from his clothes and carried him up in the air, then threw him at the guards behind him. "Captain! What are you doing, you madman? Catch this idiot! Stop!" And another fight started. Different from the initial patrol, the main force was equipped with spears. "Ha! You Indoro bastards don't want to give me my pay? Fine. Let's see how you can stop me." John held a stall from the market and carried it over his head. The Indoro guards had their eyes widened and gulped from fear. "Hey, comrade. Let's take this one out." "Talk my ass." John sent the stall flying at them and crashed a hole in the middle of their formation. "Stop him before he throws anything else." The guards ran with John, intending to kill him as fast as possible. John shamelessly turned tail and ran to the other side. Whatever he finds on his path, he would trap it and throw at them. The whole bazaar district became chaotic, and the Endoro guards lost control over the situation against one man. The people watching from the windows and from behind the doors couldn't fathom how a lone guard was able to do such a ruckus against the whole body of the Endoro guards. John wasn't merciful either. Wherever he ran, he would spout shit about House Endoro, saying that they don't pay their retainers and swindle people. This made the guard captains chase him with their teeth and nails to only eat his dust. In mind, John's destination was to the west of the district where the castle is. Mournhold was large, and an hour of running straight to the west wouldn't even reach anywhere, but that was what John wanted. He routed most of the Endoro guards from their posts to come after him to the point where the ruckus was heard from outside the district. This all kept going until John reached a certain plaza. He was confronted with guards from every street now, as his path and escape were blocked. "Mercenary Krylin, you are surrounded," a voice called for him from atop of a building. John stiffened. How on earth did they see through his disguise? He looked to the rooftops and saw some men in a distinctive, unique armor. Temple ordinators. This was a bit shocking. Why would the temple send people after him when he is known as laborer? This wasn't simple. Those temple ordinators are in cahoots with House Endoro, as they were raised or originated from the house. They should be tough to deal with, and as Lonmos said, they should be from the Endoro faction of the temple. John carefully heightened his senses and focused on them. The bastards were having dozens of archers on their side too. John put his hand on the guard helm and exposed his face under disguise. He appeared as a middle-aged dark elf with brown hair and red eyes. Huh? This guy is not a Nord. A temple ordinator was taken aback. How? We were told the Nord names Krylin will make a large mess when we try and catch him. You're telling me a guard did that? Another questioned. This is not normal. If things didn't go according to plan, then we have been had. The leader of the ordinators said. Kwama pile bullshit. This scum must know something. Swit, fool, identify yourself. Another shouted at John. John's face became better as he discovered he is still safe. Humph. Ask your wife who was with her last night, she'd tell you, dimwit. What? Shoot the bastard. The ordinator didn't take John's provocation well and ordered the archers. No, wait. Other ordinators tried to stop the archers, but it was too late. Swoosh, 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 swoosh. Arrows from all directions were shot at John. He didn't just stand and found a nearby stall to hide under. Once the arrows were all shot, John retaliated. A bow appeared in his hands, and he took an arrow from the ground and shot it back at the guards on rooftop. Take cover. Bastards got a bow. Who is this man? Is that really one of our guards? The Endoro guards were at loss of what to do. Volleys of arrows were shot at John, who kept running like a cat with 9 lives and hides under stuff, then shoots back. All his shots were at the guard's knees. That's it. Kill him. The leader of the ordinators aimed his hand towards John and evoked a firebolt. The other temple ordinators followed him and cast a barrage of firebolts towards John. John saw that and a smile appeared on his face. Under his feet, he has prepared a fire rune spell and overcharged it with an absurd amount of magicka. Once the firebolts were a meter away from, he was already hundreds of meters away by a teleport spell prepared beforehand. The firebolts landed on John's spot and kaboom! A large explosion shook the plaza. The people felt the land shake, and some guards fell from the rooftop. The ordinators were shocked, speechless. Serene, did you cast a fireball? The ordinator captain asked the one who was dissed by John. And no. Fireballs can't do that. Part 2. John left the ordinators for their own mess and disappeared in an alleyway with Ogreed covering him. He looked at the ordinators and frowned. Someone was after me. Someone knew my capabilities and tried to ambush me. Why? He couldn't figure out the reason but roughly understood that there was someone trying to hinder the laborers, and that is clearly House Endoral's faction in the Reclamation Temple. Only they can mobilize ordinators which serve as Templar Knights. If that's the case, then the old woman of Mournhold should have made some big enemies, and they are targeting her by dismantling the ones around her. The casino may even be in danger, but the most important thing is the old woman. Isha, act naturally. John telepathically called Isha. And nothing, just a bee. Isha seemed to be talking to someone. You can reply to me by only thinking, he said. Like that? Yes. Where are you? What is your situation? I am at God's Reach District. Gollum and I are chasing someone. TSK, you two are being distracted. Try to return to the casino fast. I was pulled away too. Seems like someone is up to something. Can you explain? Once you reach the bazaar, you'll know. Also, tell Gollum to keep his ugly mug hidden. Fine. John disconnected with Isha. He was somehow suspicious of Gollum, but looks like the two are being distracted too. Lon Moss, you hear me? Thane John, is that, where are you? I'm just talking to you from far. Is everything alright? Yes, is there anything wrong on your part? No, just secure the perimeter and empty the casino. Someone is up to something. I see. Fine. John then contacted Mirren. Hey, cute boy. Why am I heading that bastard's voice all of a sudden? I am in your head, you should stop thinking of me that much, you know. Fuck. How far can your telepathy reach? Far enough. What's your status? Nothing important. What's going on? Someone is after White Cat, you're with her. No, only Sis is with her. Who is after White Cat? Go back now, I don't know, but all of us were lured away. Damn it. Fine. John cut the connection with Mirren and tried to contact Miranda, but got no response. He tried to contact White Cat or Lon Moss again, but that wasn't the possible too. Shit. Time can't be wasted now. John took out Pride, Krylon, and the Ebony Blade. Nefertiti. Yes. Keep an eye out, tell your friends we need eyes on the city. Nefertiti appeared on John's shoulder. Fine, some boys and girls around the town owe me some fish. Oh. So you've been busy too. Let's see what you are capable of, young lady. John and Nefertiti split up. He used the Elder Staff to fly invisibly while erasing his magic signal. As soon as he reached the White Cat Casino, he could already see that something is wrong. The doors were unguarded and a strange transparent gas was coming out from some windows. John put a filtering ward around him and walked in. Everyone was out, the waiters and some customers were all lying unconscious. John carefully walked through the entrance and trod carefully. He can treat those people, but they will get in the way. Thankfully, the gas was harmless. The first floor's hall was dead silent, but as soon as John arrived at its center, poison darts were shot at him from all directions. John raised the Elder Staff up and spatial mirror formed around him. Every dart that was shot was mirror reflected at the one who shot it. Bodies fell from the balconies of the second floor and the corners of the first floor. Some staggered, but all were paralyzed once they got their darts stuck to their faces, tongues and eyes. John waved the staff once again, and all those who fell flew from their places and gathered in a sphere of bodies floating in the middle of the hall. This was just the tip of the iceberg when it comes to the skills of the Elder's Staff of Power and Fate, Pride. Exciting John's will like that can only be described as imagination magic, a power worthy of the strongest sin that even exerts its control over the very magica. John seemed proud with his work, but there was no time to dally. He cast tactical vision with Pride and saw everything clearly. There was an underground level he is not aware of and a fight going on in White Cat's room upstairs. John walked hastily upstairs and would stab with the ebony blade through some hidden corners to kill the assassins hidden behind them. He reached White Cat's room and heard some noise going on inside. Once he walked in, he saw some figures hidden with invisibility magic hiding at every corner, but he didn't trigger them. There was a hidden fight going on between top-class assassins in the room. Humph! John snorted and shot lightning bolts from his spear at every hidden assassin, shooting them down in one go. Damn it! He saw us. Some of them endured the spells and desperately ran towards John only to be sliced by his blade. He then looked around and spoke. "Miranda, it's me." As soon as he said so, a figure appeared out of thin air and collapsed on the ground. "Miranda!" He ran towards her, holding her body before collapsing. He found many darts on her, enough to kill an elephant. He directed his staff at her and gave his best healing spell, but without understanding the poison, he can't detoxify it. Krylin downstairs. I know. Hurry. Seeing her losing consciousness, John could do nothing but to transfer her inside the cube. He put her down and took off her armor, then put her in a pool of healing water provided by Alina. Just hang in there. This can at least halt the poison. The Altmare girl kept hallucinating, so John left her to rest and jumped out of the cube. Back to the casino, John found Mirren rushing to the first floor. "Miranda! Krylin! I'm here." John jumped down. "What's is that, poison?" Mirren was becoming dizzy by the invisible gas. "Here." John cast the filter ward on him. "That." "Shut up, your sister is resting. She's okay. White Cat is down there." "Yes, but what is that?" Mirren asked, pointing at the sphere of people floating in the hall. "Ignore the unnecessary details. Do you know these darts?" John passed a poison dart to Mirren. Mirren took the dart and tasted it, only to have a disgusted face. He then looked at one of the assassins and unveiled him. "Figures. Shadow scales from the Shirt-tail tribe." "Argonians?" John asked. "Naga Argonians, fanatics of a lost order. I ran into them once back at Elsewhere. Here's the situation: there is an underground floor. I don't know where is its entrance, but I'll teleport us down there. White Cat should be hiding down there, and she has company." "Okay, I'm with you." Mirren agreed and unsheathed his sword. John didn't wait and waved Pride around, taking the two downstairs. "Wha? Who's there?" An Argonian panicked. "Daddy and Mommy." "No offense, Mirren, your mommy." "Very taken, man." In a brass vault under the White Cat Casino, Lonmas and the old woman sat together. Lonmas was holding a crossbow and preparing an axe at his side. "Boy, you don't need any of that. Just let me take care of it," the old woman said. "My lady, you can't possibly be thinking of dirtying your hands. This is a last case measure when I die. Also, Lord John Dare is on the way," Lonmas said with absolute respect, more than what is shown in public. "You spoil me a lot, kid. I don't underestimate John Dare or the others, but you shouldn't have made them go through the trouble to protect this old woman," she said with a laugh. Someone has to at least be at your side when your enemies gather like that." "Enemies? Those are long dead, my boy. I leave no enemies alive. Also, I called for my own helper to come. Don't worry about my safety. I've forgotten about defending myself than most will ever learn. It's never too much protection, your mage." "Wait, is that music?" Lonmas frowned. I hear it, it's quite nice." The old woman relaxed with a smile. Some fighting Josie was heard and died down a minute later. The music came closer and someone knocked on the vault's door. Lonmas went to the breathing vents and spoke. "Who's there?" "It's Krylin." "How can I be sure? I saved your ass from freezing to death on Japhet's Folly." "Oh, thank kind." Lonmas opened the vault for John and Mirren and looked outside. "Nice work." "Thanks. That thing is—" Lonmas pointed at the spectral gramophone floating behind John. "I am a sick person who loves to listen to Mozart while killing people. It's so peaceful," John said and walked to White Cat to lend her a hand. "Good job, my friends. I trust that you left some alive for questioning," she said while standing up. "Surely, we would love to find an antidote for these needles first and see why those in Doril are luring us out and sending Argonian assassins," John said. That can't be," the old woman denied. "What? The Indoril are too prideful to send Argonians or even make them enter Mournhold." "What makes you say that?" she asked. "Well, temple ordinators were after me by name and Argonian assassins are all over the place." The woman frowned. "No. It seems I was wrong. Our enemy is not House Indoril, not just House Indoril. Someone else is at play here," she said. "And why are those many people after you? You hired the laborers from the temple, but the Indoril? I don't get it," Mirren asked. "No, keep this to yourselves, but you should know what we were doing for the past few days, right?" she said. "We were securing the roads between Narses and Mournhold," John said. "Yes, while transferring food and weapons to Narses," Lonmos added. "Weapons and food? Like war efforts?" John was quick to catch up. "Yes, our objective is to support House Hlalu in Narses. This attack means someone is on to us. Someone is after Narses and want to get rid of House Hlalu by cutting its northern supply line, which is us," the old woman said. "Who might that be?" Mirren asked. "Can be literally anyone," Lonmos said. "The Empire is a big suspect. They may be trying to get back to Morrowind again. Any of the 5 great houses is also a potential enemy, and the Unzeilil government of Black Marsh is an obvious answer, but the Indoril Temple faction is involved or being manipulated. We are short on information here." John and Mirren looked at Lonmos with admiring eyes. He was analyzing the situation on a vast scale. "Good job, my boy. I want you to pull our people in Mournhold," the old woman said. "Shouldn't you leave the city for a month or so until we figure things out?" Mirren said. "No. I was born here, and as my days are closing, I want to die here." The old woman showed a stubborn attitude. She then looked at John and Lonmos. "Can we rely on your people from Skyrim to supply us?" she asked. "Sutter clan was always faithful to you as our savior, my lady. We will do what we can," Lonmos said. "I can spare an army," John said. "No need for an army, my friend," the old woman laughed. "Fine, I'll reach out to my people." The casino started to be guarded by a large militia and closed its doors to customers. The old woman's tongue accepted the challenge. By the next day, Miranda was cured of the poison. John and Isha were patrolling the perimeter when they ran into an Indoril guard with a wanted paper. The guard hanged it on the wall and left. Isha frowned and looked at John. "Whoops, my bad." John laughed awkwardly. "The wanted drawing has a certain familiar face on it. It was the face John used yesterday, or rather, Gollum's face." Chapter 4:15 No Man's Land 7-8 Settling Scores, Carly. Part 1 Settling Scores. A fancy carriage stopped at a certain building in the south of the Bazaar district. It was guarded by some intimidating-looking men who secured the area around the carriage first before knocking on its door. John walked out of the carriage in his Krylon appearance and extended his hand to the other passenger. The old woman came out after John holding his hand, and the two walked to the building. "Sorry to trouble you, my friend. Gollum seemed to have got mixed up in something mysterious lately," she said. "Yes, I saw it. Bad news. What happened?" John made a disheartened look. "You sure you have no idea what happened? He was gazing at you thinking you did something with illusions." She looked at him with disbelieving eyes. "I said it, didn't I? Anyone with a decent talent in magic can see through a mimic spell." "Then how do you explain what happened?" "I just cast some illusions on a guard, and he went on a rampage, but somehow he ended up looking like Gollum. Nothing I could do about it." "Heh. I think there is more to the story. I'll take your word for it." The old woman giggled softly and walked forward inside the building. The place looked like a big merchant store where they sell grains and materials by big amount. The old woman found her way through the workers who cleared the way for her, intimated by John's presence. The two finally reached the other end of the building where a desk stood empty. "Alvin, I know you are here. Come out," the old woman called. John looked around for this fellow Alvin, then noticed someone poking his head from behind a door. He sighed and stared at the man until he came out. My, what a pleasant surprise, Tong leader. You honor us with your presence," said the man who appeared to be a fat Dunmare. He came in front of the woman and went on his knees trying to kiss her hand, but John held him from his nape and shook his head. "Excuse me, Tong leader. Please have a seat. Mister, please have a seat too." The fatty kept offering hospitality, so the old woman simple walked and sat behind the desk. How are you doing, Alvin?" she asked. "We are living by your boon, my lady. There is no more we can ask for," Alvin said while bowing slightly. "So you remember?" Of course, how can I forget?" How is your wife, Alvin? Did she have an easy birth?" "Yes, thank you for asking, my lady. Strange. I hear she departed to Ebonheart right after birth. Why so fast?" "Yes, she had to stay with her mother to take care of the newborn. Mournhold is not suitable in spring for the seasonal fever." "I see." The old woman pointed at the chair across the desk. "Sit down, Alvin." "My lady, I prefer." Alvin was about to say something, but John held his shoulder and forced him on the chair. The fatty sat while sweating like a swine. "Tell me, Alvin, do you know what I value the most?" she asked. Alvin nodded hastily. "The most valuable money I have ever made and the priceless lesson of life. Value loyalty above all else," she said and stood up. She walked around the desk to Alvin holding her staff. "The prices of the grains have gone very high overnight. Mind explaining, Alvin?" The last shipment was not very good. Some sacks were rotten, and we had to come up with a way to cover the loss slightly until another fresh shipment arrives." "Which shipment?" "The Silver Hills shipment. The one from Skyrim." The old woman was taken aback. "The Silver Hills went bad? Isn't that the wheat from Winterhold?" "Yes." The old woman looked at John and the two sighed in their minds. "Strange. The Dare fleet is known to have fast ships powered by demons as far as the rumor says, and those people from Winterhold are really fanatics about quality," she said with a doubting tone. I don't know. Maybe those demonic ships caused the grains to be cursed." "Good one, Alvin," the old woman said and called for a worker. "Bring me some Silver Hills sacks, one from each corner of the building." The worker looked to his boss, but John was covering the screen. "Until the grains come, tell me, Alvin, what happened to the charity distribution I ordered? Word is the refugees didn't eat their fill last night." Alves jumped off his seat. "Those... Impossible, my lady. The distribution is going very well every day. Anything but that is baseless accusations." "No one accused you of anything, Alvin," she said. "Oh, I see a test." "Yet," John continued for her. Alvin looked at John with an offended look, but John's mask alone was intimidating, as if the face behind it is a part of it. "Here, my lady, the sacks." The worker came with a few others and put the sacks in front of the old woman. "Open them," she said. The worker opened them, and then she went forward and put her hand in every sack, taking out some grains and tasting them directly. "Cyrodiilic light grains," she said. "No, it can't be. This is..." Alvin was shocked seeing a classy lady like her recognize grains like a tact farmer. "Krylin, my dear. We made a detour to recover something this morning. Would you mind doing the you snap thing?" "By all means," John said and snapped his fingers, taking out some large sacks from the cube. Alvin saw the sacks and lost all the power in his legs. The worker opened them, and the old woman did the same. It is as you can smell the snow and wind of North Skyrim. A scent I will never forget. Reminds me with year 45 of the Third Era. We were on a ship on the northern waters of Skyrim hoping to steal a map to a treasure from Dawnstar's Jarl, but we had to dock on a wild shore because of a coming storm. Hiding in the ship was reckless, so we landed with little food we have got. For our dumb luck, the food was rotting and no animal or village for half a day's walk. My friend Sor and I hid in a cave of all places waiting for the storm to go by the morning, but as the morning came, there was no end for it. I've never seen so much rain, winds like a Daedra went mad. All we could do is wait it out, but Sor, he made a run for a village. So I was there, soaking wet, alone, 3 days of absolute misery. And on the 4th day, I was overcome by this incredible feeling of peace. Something about hiding there while the rest of the world is being torn apart. Sigh. It was poetic. Poor Sor learned that the hard way. What happened to him? John asked. He died, didn't get a few steps before the wind sends him flying to land on his skull. The 5th day when it all went down made me, and the ones who lived it run to the village, and bet for food like a bunch of vagrants. We didn't even have enough willpower to raid a single village. The old woman said and approached Alvin. Now, do you know the moral of my story? Alvin nodded like a chicken. I wasn't talking to you, Alvin. She turned around and looked at the worker. I'm talking to you, young man. Yes, my lady, the worker said. What's your name? Talum. How long have you worked in my granary? 4 years. Fine. You are in charge now, she said. Tong leader. That can't be. I am. Alves wanted to say something. If you don't want to end up being naked, penniless and crawl like a worm to your wife in Ebonheart, then I suggest you keep it down, she said with a deadly glare. Alvin turned silent. You stand accused of betraying my trust and not showing the loyalty I expect, Alves. The goods you tried to monopolize, the prices you raised, and the charity food you stole will all weight you down when my punishment comes, but I think you can spare yourself some beating, Alves. You now can tell why I withdrew all my guards to the White Cat, and that's for you and your likes to think I am retreating. I've been spending the whole morning with Krylin here, and I've seen him slap some people. Let me tell you this, people have been oblivion for some time after his slap. They also make a nice echo. Alves gulped, looking at the giant behind him. Now, Alves, mind telling me what I want to know? Part 2, Carly. Looks like you got yourself some answers? John sitting in front of the old woman. Thanks to your intimidating, it all worked fast. Don't mention it. Some celebration then. The old woman took out a couple of clean goblets and a bottle of red liquor. She handed John a goblet and poured for the two of them. John smelled the liquor before tilting his head. I don't know that. He narrowed his eyes. The old woman grinned and replied. Akaviri blood sake. John's eyes widened. I thought that was a myth. Same was said about G-Spot, but hey, some friends make the impossible possible, right? Haha. Cheers. Cheers. The two stayed quiet for a bit before John talks again. Old cat, who are you? Really? The old woman smiled as she looked out of the window. From as early as I remember, all I wanted to do is to be a captain of a ship. To be out there in the middle of the night navigating by the stars. I always thought it would be the greatest life on Nirn, getting lost between the sea up there and the sea down here. Heh, that's something to know about me, she said. John smiled and became silent for some time. You're never going to tell more, aren't you? He asked. Let me put your mind at ease, I never do, she said, returning the same grin as him. I'll go with that. More sake? Sure. I may have told you before, but I have already invited a new one to join the circus. Do get along with her. The old woman added, trying to avoid the misunderstanding that happened between John and Gollum once again. Her? I'm always getting along with them hers. The old woman smiled widely and shook her head. The carriage stopped back at the casino and John helped the old woman down. The Tong members were guarding the place from outside and inside. Lon Moss was waiting at the door and came out to receive the two. Thank the nine you're back. Going out like that. Relax, my boy. Withdrawing the Tong people was just to make the rats feel the pressure off. Everything is going back as it was now. By your wish. I'll see to it. Did anyone come while we were gone? Not at all. The old woman sighed and went in followed by John. In there, Isha was playing Gwent with a black cat, which is of course Nefertiti. Still losing? John asked. Shut up, Isha groaned. The rest of the team were doing their things by either sharpening their arrows, reading a book, or eating an untimely meal. I think the lot around here is getting comfortable, John said. It should be fine. According to what we know now, you won't have any rest for the next few days. The old woman replied. John offered her a hand on the stairway and reached her study upstairs. But somehow, his senses were felt something is not quite right. Show yourself? John blocked the old woman's path and took out Maroon's razor. No reaction came at first, but a dart was launched at his forehead. John just had to swing the dagger and send it back where it came from. No need for it, you two. Just let me rest my old bones first. The old woman bypassed John without care and sat at her favorite place. Beside her, a Dunmare woman appeared in a mysterious way. Shadow magic? John noticed. Oh, you could tell? The old woman was taken aback. I happen to see it a lot. The old woman took his answer for it and looked at the woman who appeared. How have you been doing, girl? Eating well? She asked. Yes, Grandma. I'm doing good. The other woman replied. I'll leave you two together then, John said and left for his business. The two women sat in front of each other. That was Krylin. You should at least have heard some rumors on your way here, little Carly. Quit calling me that. We're not in the past century. Come on, you're not that old, my dear. Want some candy? Sigh. Why did you call me here, Grandma? Why should I have a reason? One can't look out for their grandchildren nowadays? The woman called Carly looked at her grandmother while narrowing her eyes. Fine. I'll go with whatever you say. How are you, old hag? Not planning on being a Hagraven anytime soon. Plenty of them in Skyrim. TSK. And here I was going soft on you. Truly, all I raised are sluts. The two couldn't hold their laughter much longer. So, how is Skyrim? The old woman asked. Cold. Somehow, the Nords are still running wild rather than freezing to death. Carly said. What? Any trouble? Yes, East March and the Rift are going to war with the rest of Skyrim. What about Winterhold? Neutral as well as Whiterun. Those are the big traders nowadays and they want to save money. What about Mournhold? How are things? Not very well, I'm afraid. The spring is as nasty as ever, killing many children. This damn fever is throwing the money all over the place. Want my help then? Carly asked. Yes, keep your other side of the family away from mine. Tell them to respect the elders before I walk in the Grand Council again, and bitch slap them all. The old woman said. The Endoral are causing you trouble? Fine, I'll cash out some favors with my cousins just for you, you old dying woman. I'm not dying, damn you. The grandmother and granddaughter pair had a certain understanding of things. Have you heard about this guy, the Red Cat of Riften? Carly asked. The thief. Yes, the one they call Catatosker. He appeared in Whiterun and stole from the Jarl over there. They say he showed his face and people are hellbent on finding him now. Really? How does he look like? Just a big tabby Kajiat. Ha! Good luck, tell Kajiat apart then. The old woman laughed. I also think the same. Hey, do you have money? A big sum? Carly asked. Not now. But why? It is not like you to ask before you steal. Ahaha. Yes. I'm really spending a lot the next couple of years, and I need some of your coffers to back me up. I put my eyes on some small meaderies, some farms, alchemy shops and honey businesses I want to send bankrupt. You're taking revenge already? The old woman asked. Not revenge. Justice. You're the one who taught us that revenge is a disease that eats the mind and poisons the soul. Carly said. Well said, but you'll have to stay by my side for the coming couple of years until I am done with the Narcissus dilemma. Right, I went through it but found many hidden fingers. Want me to investigate? I've already done that. And who are we up against? The old woman smiled. Imperials, Argonians and Dunmare, but the one behind all that is none other than our old friends who always wanted Dasheen for themselves. House Drays. A week passed very quietly. After the run-in with the Indoro guards and the old woman spring cleaning her tongue from Traitors, John and the rest spent their time training. In his room, John sat while floating in the air. He was meditating in silence while equipping Wraithgord in his right and manipulating some red energy of a broken heart stone. The red energy was swirling around him in circles, and he would absorb it slowly and carefully. As he was nearing a certain limit, John's face turned red, green then blue. He opened his eyes and fell on his but then spat out a mouthful of black blood. Blah. So nasty. Some caught up on my taste buds. Shit. He desperately cleaned himself and the floor from the impure blood and sat to catch his breath. Finally, I've been training like a fool for the past month and came this far. The Dragon Frame realm is almost over and I am back to uncharted waters. Also, somehow the path ahead seems only longer now. John sighed and lied on the bed in his room. System, can we reach out Skyrim from here? Out of range. Empowering your magical signal is advised. Still not enough? I just had another breakthrough, damn it. John became disheartened and took out a light screen from the cube. Give me a status scan result. Calculating. Equals. Status. Name, John Dare. Level. 8 Ebonblood Realm, Dragon Frame Stage. Vitality, 3725. Magicka, 3710. Powers. O Nord. Battle Cry active. 50% Frost Resistance passive. A Fire Main. Fireborn. 50% Fire Resistance passive. Titanborn. Beast Master passive. O Serpent Stars. Serpent Tyranny. All Stars Computability passive. Ozidal's Genius. Secrets of Enchanting. Ozidal's Knowledge passive. Blessings. Allmaker. Root of Power. 2500% Magicka Regeneration active. Otelos. Fortify Thursdayum. 50% cooldown passive. Kine. Empower Thursdayum. Plus 20% damage passive. A Dragon Guardian. Dragon Affinity. All dragon-related creatures' affinity passive. Ashen Flames active. A Shiagarath. Mad Warrior. 2500% Vitality Regen active. A Hermias Mora. Bardic Knowledge. Spectral Instruments for Magical Buffs active. A The Shadow Stone. Hide in Shadows. Better Sneaking in Darkness passive. Blur. Plus 20% combat speed passive. The reason I wasn't showing the status was because I lost the TXT file containing the notes I had about the novel. I spent the past couple of days recreating the status, blessings, powers, future events and characters files, and here's some result. Some things may have been missed during the story, but I just added them anyway. The Serpent Stars is an initial power in John from his birth, and it grants him the power to make contact with any star constellation. Ozidal's Genius is the power of Ozidal's set, but John gained bit permanently by taking Ozidal's corpse back to Sarthal. I might have missed mentioning that. I'll keep working on the gear of John, which I completely forget what it was, and the spells, 'cause God I created a ton of them. Chapter 416 The Plague 1. Narses, Morrowind's Star. In the middle of an encampment stationed in the main plaza of Narses, a lot of people and Hlala guards were running in and out carrying other people and medical supplies. Krylin, that girl is dying. Mirren ran in carrying a small Dunmare child. Damn it, put her down. She needs cold water. Cool down the fever at all costs. Use frost spells on the water and then put the girl in slowly. Listen, folks, your top priority is to cool the damn fever down. Until we know what we're dealing with, no one leaves the quarantine zone. Sir Krylin, we're having a situation. A Hlala guard came running. Out with it. Some people inside the city are trying to break out. Sick or not sick, no one goes in Narses and no one goes out. If a single rat sneaks out, then the whole damn Morrowind is fucked. John shouted. But sir, these are Hlalu family members. The guard said. Mirren, leave the girl to a nurse and go break their noble legs. Sir. On it. Mirren didn't even argue. Gollum, what the fuck are you doing? John shouted. I think I'm sick too. Gollum, who was lying on a mattress, said with a weak voice. Do you want to eat so bad or not to eat all? Do you have sores on your body? No, but I feel like shit. Then don't lay your ass down here. You have a filter mask and if you feel ill, drink up a prevention potion. I want all hands on deck. John shouted in the people helping him take care of the ill and kept checking a tent after tent. Krylin. Isha came running to him. How can I help? Krylin, this is terrible. It's Miranda, she fell ill. Damn it. 3 days earlier, on the road to Narses. A carriage pulled by 4 Guers traveled on the road to Narses surrounded by a number of guards on garbacks and horseback. John rode on Jurgen near the carriage and greeted the ladies inside. These were Old Cat and her granddaughter Carly, as well as Nefertiti taking a nap on the old woman's lap. Must be nice going out of Mournhold, Old Cat. John spoke to the women in the carriage. Yes indeed, my friend. The road to Narses in this no-man's land now became like that time when Potima Septim waged war on the Empire all by herself. The girl was maddened by the loss of her son to the point that she cursed the very life itself. What others don't remember was how she forbade death on her bones becoming a lich. One woman carried by all the rage and envy in the world could do the same damage that was caused by 2 whole nations in a war. Gives you something to think about. The old woman said. You've seen the Wolf Queen of Solitude. I fought against her and her son. Poor child was driven by that bad envy of hers. The Ruby Throne, that's what she wanted all her life. Once her son was burnt to death and she fortified herself in solitude, I was sent to her as a peace envoy. I offered her everything but a cornered wolf who lost her cub hears anything but reason. And for 10 years we fought. 10 bloody years that would make the Plane Meld and the Oblivion Crisis look like amateur work. The old woman's tone was very remorseful. Wow. John was heart and soul focused on the story. You like my tales, Krylin? Old Cat asked. They are actually great. I've recorded them by magic just now. The old woman smiled. All is left with for me now is nothing but old bones. If I were younger, I wouldn't have stayed in one place like I do now. You are not called the old woman of Mournhold for no reason. That's true. She agreed bitterly. But I tend to disagree. John added. The old woman and her granddaughter curiously looked at him. What do you mean? She asked. Ever heard of the placebo effect? John asked. No. It is when you are suffering from a mild pain, for example, then I give you some water with lemon on it, and tell you this will cure you while in fact it is just juice. I understand now. I did that a lot with my children, Once. No stories for now, please. Opposite of the placebo effect is the nocebo effect, like when I give you some sour juice and tell you this will make you vomit, so you do vomit. Aha! In both cases, the mind has the power to create its own reality and an effect will appear on the body. Studies show that it appears naturally, mostly due to stress, as some physical symptoms. But most importantly, and like any disorder, it can be contagious. Of course, there are many factors to consider, but what we know that in some communities, under certain circumstances, an involuntary behavior developed by one person can go viral. Think of something like a mass laughing hysteria, or what happens when some bird flocks do some very unnatural but perfectly coordinated movements in the air that researchers can't explain. In the end, it will spread from person to person until the entire community is infected. By that, if an idea can become an illness and the illness becomes an infection. Think of this. From the Dawn era to the Fourth era and throughout the communities of Tamriel, what else about our reality is just an illusion? The old woman looked at John as if no sound other than his was in the world. She pondered over it and tried to answer his question, but wasn't really able to pinpoint a certain idea. In the end, she gave up. What do you consider an illusion? She asked. A Dunmare should answer this question before any other race on Tamriel, just like that. John said and snapped with his fingers. Then give me time to think, she said. As you wish. What is that about anyway? How could you put together those ideas? She asked. I'm writing a book, John replied. A book? Yes. A book about the magical psychology, the logical lies and the daring ideas about the magic and the world, John said. The idea of a book written about some crazy obscure subjects like these will be crazy. Knowing that Krylin is John Dare, Winterhold's college prodigy, the old woman thought of something right away. Finish that book before your labor ends, show it to me, and I'll put you in the central hall of Shad Astula Academy to give a lecture and make a discussion about the book with the high mages over there. Shad Astula Academy. Well, I'll take you up on that. Humph. You have to worry about your end of the bargain first. Finish that book, my friend. Without you saying, Shad Astula Academy is one of the most important schools in Morrowind, which is considered a gathering for freethinkers, just like the College of Winterhold. Also, it is one of the places where the old Ebonheart Pact used to train its leaders, mages and high officials, and is still used for the same purpose to this very day. John wouldn't miss the chance for the world. But the book I am writing will be published under my real name. Won't that attract bad attention? John asked. Remind me, what was your surname again? The old woman teased him back. Oh, I see. I just got the D word in a very indirect way. Seriously? Fine. You got me there, old cat. John laughed and rode ahead. In the carriage, Carly looked at her grandmother with strange eyes. Quite the guy, that one. What is his real identity? She asked. I don't disclose information about my friends, the old woman said. Friends? Aren't you too old for friends? And I thought most of those died a long time ago. Some still are alive. The old playboy around Vardenfell, and my friend who sends me gifts from Akavir. Ha! You really an impression on some strange people despite how wrinkly you've grown. What should I say, granddaughter? When I was younger, I was good, very good. About how many 100 years ago? Why are we stopping? The two looked around to see themselves still in the middle of nowhere. John's voice sounded talking to someone in the front, then he came to the carriage with a Dunmare man. Old cat, this man is Hlalagard. He's carrying a message to you, John said. Beside John appeared a Dunmare who seemed to have been through oblivion. Speak, son. What's going on? Old cat asked. My lady, thank Azure you're here. Narcisse, There is an epidemic taking over the town." "An epidemic?" The old woman tensed all of a sudden. "What epidemic?" Carly asked. "We don't know," the man said. "Tell them the symptoms," John urged. "Yes, around a week ago, some people became very hungry all of a sudden. They ate like pigs and developed a mild fever with slight ache. 4 days after, that fever became very high and they refused to eat at all. They also developed some open sores and fell to extreme pain." "Oblivion!" Carly was horrified. "I don't know what epidemic is that, but you may have just described the Llodos fever. It should just go with some local herbs and would take weeks to develop a second stage. It is not that contagious either. How on earth did a spring fever become that violent?" The old woman self-monologued. "What should we do? We can't enter an area with such an epidemic," John said. "Too late. You just came across someone who came from the place," Gollum said, pointing at the man. "Gollum is right. We need to rush to Narses at this rate." The old woman made a decision and the convoy moved. Narses was about to witness the harshest spring on Tamriel. Chapter 4:17 The Plague 2. Love in the Time of Llodos. A day passed since the old woman's team arrived at Narses. This situation was tragic. The epidemic spread so fast that Narses had pillars of smoke rising from each corner, burning everything that thought to be contaminated. The Hlala guardsmen and the civilians were on a survival game against the epidemic. In this total mess, a team of skillful individuals were taking the lead in the emergency response and enforcing the quarantine on Narses under the management of the old woman of Mournhold. The first thing they did before they arrived was putting on a plan. Narses was a medium-sized city, a bit smaller than the current Winterhold, housing over 20,000 civilians. Controlling all of those is literally impossible, and many were trying to escape the town. The old woman came with a diabolical idea. She personally summoned a large number of undead skeletons and made them roam around Narses, giving the town the impression of being under an evil attack rather than a punishment from the gods, as some rumors began to spread. John's ideas of the quarantine were mostly new but were not less violent than the old woman's undead solution. The city's layout was mapped to him by the clerics of House Hlalu. He put a plan to block the streets by breaking many carriages and setting them on fire, leaving only some routes to be monitored. An angry mob would go through a lot of trouble to break out from Narses at this rate. Mirren and Miranda, as well as many other mages, were focused on applying filter wards on all the medical gear that was going to be used by the staff. The 2 high elves had an excellent aptitude in enchanting and their coordination was top-notch. Gollum and Carly were assigned to dispose of and burn anything that is suspected to be contaminated. The heroes of the day were both Isha and the old woman. The two seemed to have been trained on a unique ability to resist poisons and partially diseases, which they called the immunity to 1,000 poisons aptitude. The two went and inspected every corner of the town, marking the places to seal and the routes to follow while discovering the paranoid citizens who refused treatments for many reasons. The first day passed like that and the second day arrived. This day was the beginning of the real suffering. The disease had 2 known stages this far. The first stage lasts between 5 to 7 days and starts with a mild fever and random bodily aches and pains. Afflicted also have a terrible hunger that cannot seem to be satisfied. The second stage is marked by a high fever, overall weakness, and the appearance of open sores upon the body. Pain grips the afflicted, making most normal activities impossible to perform. During this stage of the epidemic, the afflicted's appetite disappears, and it is a struggle to eat and drink sufficient amounts of food and water to maintain their body weight. The old woman estimated this stage of the epidemic to last at least 7 days. If the afflicted doesn't throw off the disease during this period, a chance of survival may drop to almost 0. This is the 10th day of the breakout and the situation is looking bleak. Only a handful of alchemists were working day and night with no real result other than a potion that can prevent the infection and a portion to ease the pain. Yesterday, Miranda fell to the disease too and was consumed by the terrible hunger. John and Isha stood out of her room looking at her wolfing a chicken in a minute. "Where is my sister?" Mirren came asking. Miranda tensed after hearing her brother's voice while John blocked the doorway and Isha faced Mirren. "Hey, let's talk outside." Isha tried to take him out but Mirren carried a strange look. "I feel something is wrong. Let me see her." Mirren shouted at John and the latter only sighed and moved away from the doorway. "Just don't walk in." Clearing the door for him, Mirren tried to walk inside but Isha held him. The Altmaier twins stared at each other wordlessly. 1,000 thoughts or so were exchanged between the two in moments before a smile appears on Miranda's face and disheartened look on Mirren's. He then walked out and Isha went to comfort him. John followed the two by his eyes until they stood together and Isha pulled Mirren closer and hugged him. "Oh, that girl is smooth." John grinned. "What?" Miranda asked. "Just some love in the time of whatever this epidemic is," John replied. "Love? Yeah, Isha is making an advance on your brother. She is hugging him like a boy who will protect his girl by all costs. Wait, is he never mind?" John smartassly remarked. "Crying?" Miranda asked. Well, yeah, man's tears are valuable, you know. Don't underestimate. Brother was always a crybaby," she said. "And you are the silent, cool beauty?" "No. I'm the one who likes the weirdest of things." "Strange. It took an epidemic to make you talk that many words," John remarked. "On second thought, you may be the most terrible last person to talk to. God, no. I am awful at this. I am very sensitive." "Are they still hugging?" Miranda asked. "I've good news and bad news. That's a new way to put it. If you live through this, then your brother will lose his virginity to Isha, the wrong one." "Okay. I see the point now." "What's with you two anyway?" John asked. "What's with us? You look alike, act alike and dress alike. We are twins, we live together all our lives, and we have a reason to dress alike. So you dress like a boy sometimes." "No. Thinking that a girl will dress as a boy is more believable than a boy dressing as a girl." Miranda gave a hint. "I see. So the both of you has some bounty on your head," John concluded. "We're assassins." John nodded, but in his mind he was denying the answer. Assassins like those two are ghosts. They don't even have a reputation, let alone a bounty. John could think of a few answers, but he was not bothered that much. "Fine, elf girl. I'll find a cure somehow and get you on your feet," John said. "You won't do that from here, else you too will get infected," she said. "I am already infected." "What?" Miranda's eyes opened wide. "I caught up the thing this morning, but my inner system is putting on a fight. I have learned the ability to expel any inside harm forcefully, so I want to understand what is this illness attacking and how to stop it. All I know now is that this is a microbe that attacks many vital organs. I am having a hard time suppressing it, which is causing my body heat to rise, and I'm frankly quite dizzy, but I think I'll get the hang of it." "What?" John's monologue right now made Miranda speechless. "Let me clarify further. The microbe attacks the body violently, but the natural immune system is fairly responsive. The problem is how fast the microbe reproduces and how the body reacts. The reproduction on both sides of the fight causes the body to crave for food on a large quantity to compensate for the loss of energy. Still, the sinister part about the microbe, beside its rapid productive ability, is how it goes on a war with the immune system, not just to suppress it but to wear it off. Once that is done, the next target will be the esophagus, which the microbe attacks by inner sores, and that is the second stage for you. With the body unable to compensate for the rapid energy loss, things go down fast. If I were to guess, I would say this disease is not something new but triggered to be violent by a certain factor. Sadly, the common cure is of no help. And we don't know who's patient zero. What? Don't worry, I've already shared this with Old Cat earlier this morning. Hold on. Miranda raised her hand. You are infected too. Oh boy. John held his head. It is not your fault. It is just that I was a big nerd in my past life. Past what? Speaking of which, ever heard about them dragons? On a later date, John was summoned by the old woman. So we found him? He asked. Yes. The first patient it is. His state is quite bad, but Isha is talking to him. The old woman replied. John insisted on finding patient zero as a part of determining how to deal with the epidemic. An hour later, Isha came back with news. Patient zero seems to be a miner who discovered a sealed pathway in the mine he works and tried to discover it only to find it filled with undead. There were some scratches on his back, and that seems to be the reason behind the epidemic. You were right, Krylin. Finding the first patient gave us a lot to work on. Isha said. Got a location on the mine and the other miners? John asked a Hlala clerk. I'll provide you with records of the place right away, Sarah, sir. This should work. It will. A few hours later, the clerk returned with an exhausted face. I have gone through all the records of the scribes regarding the minor and major accident. I only found this. The clerk presented his research results to the old woman and her party. These records go back to 2E583? That's even before my time. The old woman said. Almost 950 years ago. What does it say? John and the old woman skimmed through the paper, then looked at each other and frowned. The Llodos plague? Not the Llodos fever? John asked. The Llodos fever is an old sickness that appears in the spring all around Dashin. I've never known there was a plague by the same name. If it is the Llodos, shouldn't people have at least immunity to it? The old woman wondered. I think you are mistaking something here. The Llodos fever is the watered-down version of the Llodos plague. One is regular while the other is pandemic. Here, there are third and fourth stages as we feared. The note says the third stage of the plague marks the beginning of the end for the afflicted. The open sores cover most of the afflicted's body, which burns with such heat that the afflicted becomes delirious and subject to hallucinations. The afflicted refuses to eat or drink, and any kind of movement results in agony. This stage of the plague is relatively short, lasting from 1 day in extreme cases to as long as 5 days for those unfortunate enough to hang on. Gods! The final stage of the Llodos plague can take one of two paths. Many of the afflicted simply die an extremely painful death when the plague has run its course. The other path results in the afflicted transforming into undead creatures that are known as plague husks. These violent creatures become intent on attacking anything they encounter. This explains the undead in the mines. So we are dealing with an old disease that was watered down through the ages but had traces in an old catacomb that was used to dispose of the dying patient. That was tricky. John concluded. The note mentions a cure made of Kind's heart-healing herbs, sour milk tea, and dragon scale mushrooms. We need every single piece of those. Krylin, Isha and Gollum, you three deal with the undead. I will personally prepare the cures. On it. I want all the patients distributed to 4 zones. Those who are suspected to carry the plague, those in the first stage, those in the second, and those who are nearing the third. But before all, send guards to the alchemy stores and demand that they hand over their stash of those items before they think of hiding some. She then turned to Isha. Isha, did you ask Patient Zero about any other miners who may have been with him? We can't miss someone out. The old woman asked. He said he had 2 new miners with him that he managed to trick away. Large orcs, that's how he described them. Orcs. Not quite common here. Look for the poor souls too. They may have caught something. The old woman took over the situation and ordered everyone around, ignoring the lords of House Hlalu, who all stood behind her waiting instructions too. By the end of the night, the life started to find its way back to Narses, but none could tell that it was just the end of round 1. The enemy was stepping up the game. Chapter 4:18 End of the Plague, the Traitor. The novel seems to have lost a considerable number of patrons over the past 2 months, and the comments are also not that much. I think rushing things would be bad, but I seem to be having no choice. Most of you want the game start arc. Also, the monthly extra dropped to 3. Anyway, another double chapter. A daily plus 5k votes extra. Part 1. End of the Plague. John, Isha and Gollum took the way back after exterminating the millennia-old plague husk. Just like the Draugrs, these undead were quite the thing to deal with, but they were undead and sun spells were their ultimate bane. The mine place was completely purified by completely incinerating and disposing of anything that can carry the plague. John even offered one of his contamination Dwemer chests to seal the remaining and locked it forever by the skeleton key, while planning to banish the whole thing to oblivion if there is an opportunity. Still, when the 3 approached Narses, they felt that something was amiss. The 3 detected some unnatural auras and rushed in the city. The situation was complete mayhem. Plague husks? Here? Isha became horrified. Oblivion! Gollum and John were not believing what they seeing. Compared to the old things from the mine, these ones are quite fresh. How on Nirn? The plague husks shouldn't have appeared in Narses even after a week from now. Krylin, the old woman. Our labor. She is our top priority. Isha shouted. Shit. I'm going all out then. John didn't plan on concealing his power anymore. He took out Pride and put half of his magicka in a spell. Come forth. As he cast the spell, the void shifted and a horde of flame atronachs appeared. Just like a flock of torchbugs, they flew in all directions attacking the plague husk. Krylin, you're a mage? Gollum was taken by surprise. He is. And the best one I know. Isha replied. We need to find the city hall. The old woman is a strong sorceress. I think I can feel her magic this way. John walked through the ruined area and the burning houses to the direction of the plaza. He cleared the roads and rescued many just by waving his staff left and right. The fires were put down, people were saved, and any plague husk in his way was just set ablaze. On the road to the plaza, they came across Mirren and Carly. Ms. Carly, Mirren, what is this situation? Thank goodness you're here. The whole Narses is falling apart. We don't understand how, but the plague skipped the 3rd stage to the 4th. Mirren said. No, it got accelerated way too fast. The afflicted are turning into husk. Carly had another opinion. Where is your grandmother? John asked. She is maintaining some protection runes in the plaza. We should save the people first. Any afflicted outside the plaza will turn into a husk. You 4 do that, my atronachs will assist you. I have something to discuss with Old Cat. John said and teleported right away to the plaza. Why? Did he just teleport? Gollum and Mirren were looking to the spot where John was. Old Cat. Oh, Krylin. A hand with this, please? Okay. John appeared right next to the old woman in the center of the plaza. She was standing and raising her staff up, forming a large barrier around the emergency encampment. John held the staff with her and supported it. What is this barrier? John looked at the runes of the formation on the ground, but didn't have time to read it all. Protect against magicka and mental influence. Something is very wrong out there, my friend. What do you mean? After you left and the medicine was being given to the people. Some started to get better, but the ones not given the cure started to scream, and hallucinating their conditions worsened on a rapid pace. I realized that an outer effect is at play, so I put that barrier. Good thinking. By an outer effect you mean we are under attack by something or someone we are not even aware of. Right. We need to figure out who and maintain the barrier. Hold the staff for a while, John said and retreated away from the old woman. He looked at the runes she applied on the ground and found the start of her spell. By that, he started adding to the runes and installing many soul gems on it. By that time, the rest of the team arrived at the plaza. "What are you doing?" Mirren asked. "Making a bigger barrier. Step away." As soon as he was done, John stood in front of the old woman. "Now take your staff and go back. I've got this." "You sure?" "Yeah." She stopped channeling at the barrier and left things for John, who was holding Pride. Not one expected what comes next to happen. The ground rumbled under Narses, and from the center of the plaza, the clouds gathered in the sky and a golden lightning shocked the heaven. John raised his small staff up and Pride started expanding and becoming taller than John. John then held the staff by his two hands and raised it high. The golden lightning struck down. The stone on the top of Pride made contact with the falling golden lightning and a golden shockwave expanded, killing every plague husk in Narses. The golden lightning strike turned into a pillar between heaven and earth, and threads of golden light appeared over Narses. These threads formed a fabric, and the golden fabric tightened up together, forming a transparent barrier all over Narses. By the time it was done, the whole Narses was as being as day, and the golden pillar of light disappeared, leaving the barrier to protect Narses. The ones around John were affected by the light the most and covered their eyes, but once the pillar was gone, everyone in the plaza could see the mage holding up his staff and casting that absurd spell. John collapsed on his butt after that. He is not that skilled in restoration, but he could finally cast that spell. The master-level spell. The Heavenly Dome of Stender. A spell that contains every magical protection there is, as well as healing and destroying undead abilities. I would shout for the Alliance, but my throat is very dry, John said as he relaxed down. The ones around him had a hard time understanding what happened. The old woman was not shocked by John's power but rather by the skill. The others were dead silent, but the people around the plaza were cheering. An hour passed after the unfathomable spell that was cast in Narses, and the plague was being suppressed on a rapid pace. The Heavenly Dome of Stender was enough to give people hope in recovering and made everyone on the city stare at nothing but the beautiful magic. "Good job out there, my friend," the old woman said. "It's all right. I knew Krylon would use one of his insane spells one day." Isha was excited the most. "So, you are some sort of high mage?" Mirren asked. "An expert mystic officially, but I can be considered a master. Oblivion takes me." "So, how are you feeling, old cat?" John asked the old woman. "I was once in the city of Sensual on the southern coast of Elsewhere, free diving in the Potomac Ocean." "Oh, a story time." John became excited. "I fell terribly ill, stung by a sea serpent. I was dehydrated and in excruciating pain. I had lost all sense of time and place, completely disoriented. But I knew I was dying. So I readied myself for it. And in that moment at death's door, I looked up, and standing over me in the brightness was this Mormor, sea elf, gypsy. Just standing there, smiling. She and her people nursed me back to health on a small isle, even though they were rumored to be vicious. Anyway, after becoming good as new, when I left the island, she kissed me. It was like a burst of sunlight on my cheek. It made nearly being on death's door worth it. That's how I feel now," she said. "Oh." John smiled brightly and covered his mouth. "I've never heard you tell this story before," Carly said. "That's because I never told anyone about it." "Didn't you go back for that girl?" John asked. "I did. It was 3E310 and war broke between the Empire and Summer set on a side and the Pyandania, sea elves' home, on the other. I went back to that isle to warn the people and ask them not to participate but only to find it abandoned. After that, I heard that the Sijic order interfered with the fight and destroyed the Mormori fleet. They never came to Tamriel ever since. I see. John noticed the remorseful tone of the old woman and changed the subject. So, any ideas on who attacked Narses? He asked. Attacking by a plague is cowardly. Is it really the same enemies we are facing? Mirren asked. I don't know. We need to investigate this. The old woman said. The trail is still hot. If we go out and search while the barrier is up, we will catch a rat snooping around for sure. Isha said. Good call. I am coming with you. The old woman said. I'm staying with my sister, Mirren said. The team got ready to move while it is still possible to catch wind of the one who is after the plague. The old woman, Carly, John, Isha and Gollum all were getting ready, but out of nowhere two people appeared. A very old Redguard man in a large loose robe and a Dunmare middle-aged woman. Arania! Hafiz! John and Isha recognized the two, the prophets of both Azura and Bothia. We need to talk. First off, thank you for saving Dunmare lives, Arania said. You have fulfilled the purpose of your labors even though it is not over yet. You two young ones have to stop the reason behind the plague. That's why we had to a tip for you. The old man called Hafiz said. Holding our hands now? Fine, we'll take what we get. John said. What you are up against are other laborers, Arania said. Oh, interesting. Go on. We don't know much because anything south to Dishan is veiled in mystery now. Wait, whose laborers are we up against? John asked. We are not sure which of the other Daedric princes have a labor, but let's assume that all is possible, Hafiz said. That's why we were tasked to warn you and one other thing. We need to arm you against danger. Consider it a reward for saving Narses, Arania said. Arania stood up and approached John, putting her hand on his head. A mysterious power flowed from her towards him. He was familiar with that aura as the power of Azura. You have received the agent of Azura, Dawn's beauty. Dawn's beauty? Isn't that what the world Tamriel mean? John thought. Equals. A agent of Azura. Dawn's beauty. Absorb 50% of any magic attack, turning it into magicka, active. Damn. I guess you already had an insight into it, Arania said. Yeah. He looked at Isha, who seemed to have received a blessing too. What did you get? He asked. Don't know. Still, a bit mysterious to me. You will have an insight into it when you need it, Hafiz said. So, this is it? 2 blessings and a tip. No old age wisdom? The old woman entered the room. That's all that the gods wish to reveal at the moment. Arania nodded. If it is some old age wisdom, then do not die. Gods know how we can use some of that youth you guys have. Such a waste young ones are no wise but foolhardy. Hafiz said. I tend to disagree, the old woman said. People say youth is wasted on the young. I believe wisdom is wasted on the old. All you can do is die with it without the others benefiting from it, especially the ones closest to you. They want no part of it. It is as the Lady of Mournhold says. The 2 priests replied with respect. Shall we go now? Isha said. Yes, but before we do that, I have a gift for Lady Bothia and an apology, John said. Hafiz didn't seem to have got John. Here. John took out a strange-looking mace and handed it to Hafiz. It was none other than the mace of Molag Bal, the one he got from Markarth and had to kill a priest of Bothia's cult for it. Oh, that is that. Hafiz seemed to have recognized the mace. Give that backstabbing bastard Bal some good whooping for me. Also, make sure that no other hero-like guy have a chance to find it. Here's a pro tip: hide that thing in a Dwemer ruin and make it only reachable by remote controlling a Dwemer drone that has shitty controls. You know that quest in San Andreas? Supply line. I'm afraid I don't. You'll figure it out. Part 2. The Traitor. The light of dawn lit the sky over Narses and the team headed south. John had a lot in mind regarding the epidemic's unnatural evolution. Still, they were not knowing what to look for here. The area they were venturing through was a swampland with a lot of strange alien trees that gave the feeling of mystery around every corner. Homan. Speak. Go that direction. Thankfully, John put Nefertiti on the search. She kept the whole forest under surveillance by sending shadow Atronachs around. According to her, something stated to attack the Atronachs, and she thinks it is people's doing. Dishan is a no-man's land and fairly abandoned except in Narses and Mournhold. The other settlement that is active is Tyr, but that's Argonian territory now. You hear that? Carly asked. Seems like Krylin is right. There are some presences over there. Isha nodded and lowered her posture. Carly hid behind some trees and sneaked around to catch a glimpse of some camp in the swamps. She returned and reported that. Argonians? Maybe bandits, Gollum said. I don't think so. Let's deal with them and take prisoners. Won't take a second if they are bandits. John had a different opinion. Fine, let's use the same plan. Spread around. The old woman decided to attack the bandits from all directions. After some scouting, the plan was put in motion and a barrage of fireballs descended on the camp. John, Isha, Carly, and Gollum were to attack from all directions while the old woman would support them from behind if needed. John charged from the north like the wind and jumped in the bandits' camp. An enemy an Argonian noticed John, but the ebony blade sent his head to the other side of the camp. An attack. Hurry! Argonians flowed from all directions at John. An arrow support came from Carly, who was stationed on the tree, but John only waved his sword and cut 3 Argonians in one slash. Damn it! Stop him! Summon Gorgoth and Clang! An important-looking Argonian shouted. John took note of him and cast a thunderbolt enough to paralyze the Argonian rather than killing him. As the spell was about to strike, someone appeared with a large shield and blocked it. Humph! John seemed dissatisfied, so he used his aura recklessly and launched a series of energy ribbons to all sides, killing as much as he could. Where are the rest? John wondered to himself. Only Carly and the old woman were supporting him from the back, but the other 2 didn't appear yet. Gah! Die! A strong shout came at John from the side as one big fellow waved one big hammer. John was provoked by that guy's voice and waved the unbreakable ebony blade at him. The 2 weapons clashed, but it was John who fell short. He felt like his aura was escaping from his hand. TSK. Troublesome guy. John retreated away before the hammer lands while cursing. It was a long while since anyone forced him back. Looking at the hammer, John felt some familiarity to its crudeness and frowned, for only when it moved he could tell what is it. Volendrung. Looking at its wielder, he saw an orc. Looking at the guy with a shield, who just stopped his spell, he was also an orc, and the shield was inverted with a unique look to it, carrying a faint spell warding effect. Spellbreaker. This was it. The 2 other laborers that were supposed to be facing them. John focused on his sword and readied himself for a bitter fight. The hammer can empower its user while draining the enemy's power, while the shield can fairly block anything. A troublesome duo. Take this. John out a fair amount of his aura in the sword and launched a strong attack towards the hammer user. John's oppressive aura seemed to have put a lot of strain on the strong orc, but he somehow intercepted John's attack with the shaft of the hammer. Strong orc you are, John praised. As any Orsimer, the orc said. Then why don't you break for me? John shouted a Nordic battle cry at the orc's face. The orc felt his power failing him and fell back. John got the chance to kick away the hammer, and was about to cut the orc, but the other one stopped him with the shield. "Annoying," John said while striking multiple times. The shield was really something to behold, withstanding an unbreakable blade being waved by John. The orc behind the shield was big, but seemed weak and feeble despite his ability to keep John in his place. The other orc managed to run for his hammer, but an arrow from Carly found its way to his shoulder, while a spell came at the other orc from the back, paralyzing him. The shield orc tried to spit something at John, but the latter evaded quickly, knocked the orc by a feint. The whole camp was wiped out save for the important-looking Argonian and the two barely moving orcs. Let me guess, the labors of Malakath and Periite, if I am not mistaken? John spoke to the Argonian and walked towards him. No. Stay back. You can't hurt me. I am. I don't give a single fuck who you are. You are getting a thunder cookie, John said as he waved his hand, but a voice stopped him. Krylin, stop. It was Isha's. John stopped as he felt something was wrong. That indeed was. She was being dragged by the ebony-clad man, they know as Gollum, with a dagger on her neck with her face full of bruises. John's whole being stiffened. You fucking. That's enough, Krylin. Throw your weapon, Gollum said with a troubled face. I knew you were going to backstab us one day, John said. Then why didn't you kill me from the start then? Gollum said. You bastard is a pain to my ass ever since the day you showed up. You just do things your way and be the fucking hero. You even didn't let me off and openly kept an eye on me. So you were paying attention. Damn right I was. What does Isha has to do with this? Come at me man to man? John said. Huh. You think I'm an idiot or something? I've never seen anyone as large as you are, and you knocked off that bastard Gorgoth. Even I can't do that. Let her go, Gollum, John said impatiently. Why? So you can kill us with a spell? I'm not taking chances with you. And you old hag, show yourself and that granddaughter bitch of yours. As Gollum shouted, the old woman and Carly came out from their hiding. So, you betrayed me, Gollum? She said. Betrayed you? I was never on your side to begin with. You Tong bastards are acting like lords and ladies, making your own kingdoms from the suffering of people. Wait. You are actually caring about people? John asked. Oblivion I do. That woman is not some charitable old lady, she is the Tong itself. Doing charity to gain more followers, killing who oppose her, sorting out people as she wishes, loaning merchants to sink them and to take over the bazaar. No one even knows who she is or what is her goal. Do you think that should be left aside? I can't defend her, but when shit is broken in someplace, some people tend to fix it. Last I saw of her was stopping a damn plague, and your friends seem to have started it. Just a sacrifice for the greater good. I don't see a greater good in a plague. It was just to frame her. Frame me, the old woman retorted. The cure was ready outside Narses in shipments just when the chaos goes loose. You would be arrested and the town gets saved. Gollum said and turned to John, but somehow you just managed to stop it. Like Oblivion. Who are you? Krylin? Who is the real you? What is your real face? Gollum said as he tightened the hold on Isha. You can call me Anne-Marie. Don't smartass with me. Who the fuck are you? Gollum shouted. John looked troubled. He wanted to try out something, but Gollum was too cautious. The two orcs also recovered and stood on Gollum's side, so it would be hard to free Isha. He looked to the old woman, but she signaled him to stall them. I am John Dare. What? Carly shouted. John Dare. Isha's eyes widened. Who the fuck is that? Gollum seemed unfamiliar with the name. I know. The important-looking Argonian shouted. John Dare, a Nord Thane and a Winterhold's ruler. He owns the Dare Dragon Company and has a large fleet. John Dare of Winterhold. I know him. I see. So you are just like that old woman, a rich guy with a criminal tongue at his back. Well, being as cool as old Cat is really something to strive to, but yeah. I feel like she is the much older female version of me, right? I remember. He is on the second most wanted to the Thalmor and got banished by Skyrim's king. His head equals 1,000,000 gold septim. The Argonian said. Everyone stared at John with wide eyes. Okay, I didn't know that. I know I was wanted, but 1,000,000 gold septim. I see it is the same amount of money I extorted from them. You extorted money from them? Yes, and I have to admit, I made a pool out of gold and sat in it with my cat. We were fabulous. But still, you said I was the second most wanted? Who is first? John said. The remnants of the former royal family of Somerset. Oh, I don't think I can top that. John gave up. What should we do? This guy is a fearsome mage. Gollum spoke to the Argonian. Take his artifacts and retreat with the girl. We have the advantage in the swamps. Do as he said, Gollum shouted at John. Which artifacts? The ebony blade and that ebony mask and the ebony staff as well, Gollum demanded. I see you are obsessed as ever with ebony, John said. John said as he took off Krylon and took out Pride, then passed the ebony blade all on the ground. Now, stand back, Gollum said. Why? I am still having more ebony things. See this coat I am wearing? John gathered a greed on his hand, turning it from a trench coat to a slime ball. Look at my bracers and boot. They are armored by ebony too. An ancient enchanter called Ozidal made them. Gollum, who had a weakness to ebony, stared at the artifacts John had. Oh, almost forgot the ebony rod. But sorry, that's in my pants. John was desperately buying time for whatever the old woman was doing. Just as he was about to run out of jokes, Isha's body shivered with a strong magicka. A hot wave of energy came forth and swirled around her like a gust of hot desert wind. Gollum was instantly blown away and John ran to catch her. I got you. Stop that thing? He made sure that she is okay, and then looked at Gollum, who was staggering up beside the Argonian. John gave a deathly glare as he was about to go for them, but the Argonian cried, Venerable One, protect us! With that sort of prayer, the swampy forest reacted. Every truck, branch and leaf moved at John. The fuck! Unexciting such an attack, John put a clumsy guard and got flung away by a tree. He flew a fairly big distance before crushing in the mud. Annoyed, he jumped up from his place and ran towards Gollum, but the old woman stopped him. Wait. You can't go. The Hist has taken over the forest. It is dangerous to fight here. Damn it. John hurriedly recovered his artifacts and carried Isha away from the danger zone. Are you okay? John asked. I am just some bruises. Give me that beauty Mirren for a night and I'll heal right away. She looked like someone who got ran on by a truck, but still had the ability to throw a joke. Healing her wounds was a priority. What should we do now? John looked at the two Dunmere women. I found the curse totem they were using. I'll disable it right away. Carly said. We have got a situation. The old woman seemed to have something to say. Gollum was right. Narcisse is saved, but Elder Council's army arrived to rescue it under the lead of a commander from House Drays. She said. How do you know that? Miranda was on telepathy with me. The two of them got captured. Chapter 4:19 Two Birds, One Stone. Thank you guys for the kind comments last chapter. I know I kinda nagged, even though my schedule and edits are not up to the standards lately, but I hope to always have your support and meet your expectations. Many thanks to @Orpheus, @Zarek and @OrthaBigman on P4Tray0N. Also big thanks for Dark Priest on PayPal. For your request, please talk to me on Discord or on Twitter @EldokMeasy22. Another double chapter, Daily plus 8k votes extra. Part 1. So let's recap our situation. We were dragged here for a labor as the gods of Morrowind want us to assist the old woman of Mournhold. She is a charismatic and badass grandma who controls the mafia of southern Morrowind and lay waste to her business opponents, which I'm totally okay with. I mean, look at Winterhold. Then she had this man who she decided to take care of until he became the champion of Bothia, who then turned against the old woman because he thinks she is evil. He tried to make people move against her, so he contacted House Drays and the Argonians, making them launch attacks on her business, then trying to frame her for spreading the Llodos plague. His plans went in shambles because of our friendship, hard work, and plot armor. After saving Narses, we were about to bust his major allies, which made him take things to his own hands and confront us, causing Isha to get badly hurt and stealing the Spear of Bitter Mercy. While we were at it, the Grand Council army under a commander from House Drays made a move on Narses to end the plague, only to find it all worked out and the old woman they were supposed to be capturing is nowhere to be seen, so they captured the 2 high elves who are associated with her. John said. I am sorry, where are we again? Isha asked. In my cube. Just stay still until I'm done healing your wounds. Oh, a cube? Do I have to act like this is a normal thing? Do your best. Isha was lying on her front on a bed with her back exposed. There were really some bad bruises after Gollum attacked her from behind, so it had to be made sure that there is no internal bleeding. You are really good at healing. Compared to my wife, I am very crude. Right. You are John Dare. I heard that your wife is the most beautiful woman in Skyrim. Is that true? In the world, John corrected her. Wow, that's a big claim. Being the most handsome young man in the world married to the most beautiful girl in the world is only natural. That's a side of you I never saw before. Of course, revealing that I am the most handsome young man in the world means I am confessing my identity as John Dare. The Thalmor would come after me again. Now you're being cocky. Ouch. That hurts. Right, you revealed your identity to Gollum. Don't you think he will contact the Thalmor to get rid of you? Carly added. He will. The Enzylil government of Black March seems to be friendly to the Thalmor. It seems also my labor is over as soon as we get rid of the threat of House Drays and the Argonians. John said. Indeed. It seems our enemies are clear to us now that Gollum was revealed his intentions. I never thought the boy had it in him. The old woman added. John and the 3 ladies were in the cube. They had to enter and regain their strength after what happened in the forest, as the place was now fully controlled by a hiss tree. You are good now. John finished healing Isha, then looked at the old woman. Now, how do you want to play this? Good question. We have to save the poor children first. That means we need to get rid of the Drays commander in Narses and send the army back. We also need to get rid of Gollum. He knows too much about me, and my agents can be in danger or worse, turned against me. The last thing we need to do is payback. I will use some strings to bite House Drays in the ass, but you need to deal with the Argonians in Tyr, she said. Save Mirren and Miranda. Kill Gollum and exact revenge on the Argonians. The voices are telling me I will enjoy this. John said. The voices? Isha asked. John pointed to his head. Oh, right. Isha nodded and remained silent, remembering their time in New Sheoth. First thing first. We need the boy and the girl from House Drays' grasp. Any ideas on how to do this? The old woman said. But taking the now will make the House Drays commander find an excuse to stay in Narses more. Carly added. Leave that to me. John stood up and went out of the room he invited the ladies in. A minute later, he came back with a spear in hand. This is for you. He gave it to Isha. Thanks. I want Isha and Ms. Carly to do something for me. Is there any monsters around Narses that are hard to deal with? Something like trolls or any of that? He asked. There is an Alit herd way to the north. The old woman confirmed. Alits are reptiles that have a large mouth and walk on two legs. The only thing they do is eat and shit. Perfect. Can you two draw it for me? We'll need fast goers or horses. Very fast, Carly said. Here. John handed them several Atronak horse scrolls. After explaining their use and demonstrating it, the two ladies were excited to try it out. What will you do? The old woman asked. I will drive out the army, of course, John said with a sly smile. In Narses, the situation around the town settled down by the afternoon of the second day. All of the ill who were given the cure provided by House Hlalu were recovering on a rapid pace, and the barrier around the town made any sort of contamination impossible. The plague was officially over, but what came next was Morrowind's official army claiming to be coming for rescue and judging the ones responsible for the epidemic, only to find a big barrier surrounding the city and the epidemic almost over. The commander of the dispatched force, Ulvendres, the young prodigy of House Drays and a captain in the Grand Council's army, was heart and soul hellbent on achieving military merits and taking over Narses for House Drays, but things went in shambles to him. All he could do is to look for any suspicious people, and his eyes landed on the two high elven girls who are said to be associated with the old woman of Mournhold. Initially, the plan was to come and arrest the old woman for spreading the plague. All the evidence were fixed to point at her, but somehow she got rid of the disease so fast and disappeared somewhere. All that Captain Ulvendres could do was to arrest those two under suspicion. He just needed some time to fix the case against the old woman as soon as he could. Why was House Drays interested in Narses, which is House Hlalu's home? The answer was simple. Slavery. Ever since the war with the Argonians over 190 years ago, House Drays was losing its most valuable trade, which is slavery and farming. More to that, Dishan is now no man's land, while the most valuable asset of House Drays, which is the city of Tyr, is on the other side under Argonian control. If House Drays couldn't figure out a way to get a stable stream of slaves, things will get worse. Enslaving Argonians was an old practice, but now the Enzylil government is too powerful. House Drays tried to sneak into Skyrim and kidnap Nords, but Jarl Ulfric Stormcloak and a certain clan of gigantic crazy red-headed Nords gave House Drays the ass spanking of its life. Now the only thing House Drays could do was to enslave orcs and breed the slaves while barely kidnapping any Argonian they could get their hands on. Now, the only method to regain a good stream of Argonian slaves is to take over Narses and establish it as a foothold in the no-man's land by overthrowing the weakened House Hlalu for good. The mole inside the old woman's tongue was very cooperative and even used the Argonians of Tyr to make a move. He had a few absurd demands, but nothing is too expensive when it comes to Narses and reviving the trade of House Drays. Now that the plan was facing danger and House Hlalu was having the public on their back, Captain Ulvendres was thinking of how to root out the Hlalu for good. Knock, knock, knock. Out of nowhere, the door to his room was knocked on. Who is that? A man is asking for an audience, sir. He said he has what you're looking for. A guard spoke. Captain Ulven frowned, then remembered Gollum. He must have captured the old woman. Striding to the door, the captain opened it, but didn't get to see anything other than a large silhouette. Then his face became numb all of a sudden and the world went in circles. Good paw strike, Human. Learned from the best. John seemed to have slipped his handed and smote on the man's head with the skull-smashing heavenly paw strike, with Nefertiti overseeing the whole process on his shoulder. Go find Mirren and Miranda, John said as he walked in the room and dragged the Dunmare captain in. A few minutes later, the captain walked out of his room while fitting himself in his armor. I never liked this bone mold things, it is too awful for my taste. Complaining, the Dunmare captain found his way down the barracks of Narses. Guard, come over here, son, he called. Yes, Sergio. Dunmare, sir, for higher positions. Go gather my lieutenants and the rest of my guards. Tell them we have a situation. Yes. The guard ran and returned after a couple of minutes with everyone. Yes, Sergio. What are your commands? The officers all lined up. Listen up, men. A message has arrived from Chaldaic Fortress. It seems some reavers are planning on raiding the villages around the place. Prepare for an emergency march. But, Sergio, you said this operation is pivotal for assuring Morrowind's grip on Dishon once again. An officer retorted. When did I say that? The captain asked. This morning, Sergio. That long? I was young and full of hope this morning. Don't take what I said seriously. Prepare for an emergency march right now. But, Captain, how can we leave when we just arrived? You'll figure it out. Duty calls, gentlemen. And Dishon, Sergio. We can't expand our front yard with our backyard on fire. I won't repeat my words. Narcisse is handled for now. You lot travel as soon as you can and I will come after you with my guards as soon as I finish the remaining business I have here. Yes, Captain. Dismissed. By 2 hours, the dispatched force numbering over 500 soldiers were packing and leaving Narcisse. The captain and his guards followed after them by an hour. Part 2. On the road to Chaldaic Fortress, a group 20 of armored soldiers traveled on guers and protected the carriage of Captain Ulven Drays. The captain was spending his time lazily while closing his eyes and focusing on his ears. After some time passed, he received a telepathy signal from not too far. We are ready. Do it. A few hundreds of meters away, 2 ladies were riding flame horse atronachs running through their wastelands of Dishon while pulling the aggro of an elite train. These monsters ran with nothing but food in mind, if there were any, befitting their description of being a mouth on 2 legs. I hate those things, Isha complained while she stabbed an elite that was about to attack her from the side. Just don't let them bite you and you'll be fine. The 2 girls rode like the wind until the lights of Captain Ulven's convoy appeared. Krylin, we're here. Roger. The 2 girls split left and right, then increased the spear of the Atronach horses to the max. The convoy of the captain stopped after seeing something strange charging at them, then realized it is 2 fire horses leading a horde of elite. Damn it. Run. Ambush. Captain, it's an ambush. The guards panicked right away, but the captain went out of the carriage. Steady, boys. No need to get noisy now. The captain said while dragging another naked clone version of himself with him. Captain, what's going on? The guards were about to question the strange phenomenon, but somehow they felt strange. They looked beneath themselves and saw a yellow earthly aura surrounding them. It was simply the spell bind. The captain in armor threw the other version of himself on the ground. On top of being naked, that other captain was gagged, blindfolded and tied in a strange fashion. Well, see, you wouldn't wanna be ya. The captain suddenly teleported away, leaving behind his look-alike and guards. As the elite horde clashed with the Dunmare, a bloody fight occurred and the soldiers were suppressed by the binding spell, so they started falling one after the other. And with that, we are done momentarily with House Drays after their poor young boy getting ambushed by elite monsters. Such a tragedy. The captain said, then touched his own face to dispel the transformation, returning back to John. You know the boy is still not dead yet, the old woman said. John released a lightning spell up then, if descended on the Dunmare captain, obliterating him. He is now. Good. You shouldn't play with your food. Okay, Grandma. After making sure that all soldiers are dead, John and the others rushed to save the 2 Altmare twins. None thought of stopping them, and they entered the barracks in Narcisse right away. In there, Miranda and Mirren were locked in a cell with other female inmates. John went in right away and intimidated all the criminals in the cell, then walked to Mirren and Miranda. How are you 2 doing? Like oblivion. Mirren cursed and Miranda seemed composed. John offered a hand and picked up one of them with a princess carry. Hey, I'm Mirren. Put me down. I know. Don't you think it is time? Time? For what? Our gay scene. No. Leave me be. Help. The high elf quivered left and right, trying to break free from John. Hey, give me that. Isha came and took Mirren, forcefully giving him a princess carry too. Mirren held to her while looking at John with fearful eyes. Okay. I was kidding. John dismissed the two angry looks on their faces, then turned to Miranda and carried her up from her clothes like a puppy. You feel better now? Somehow. Good, let's get out of here. As they went out of the dungeon, they reunited with the old woman and some elders from House Llodos. Thank you, my lady. Without your help, we would have lost not just our lives but Narses and many things. And Mithsera, master, the sorcerer, you have our deepest gratitude. We really don't know how to pay you with. An elder spoke humbly. It is okay. I just did what I was hired for. John shook hand with the elder and patted his back. As the elders stopped nagging and John accepted their invitation for a small banquet, they left satisfied. John and the rest moved to their residence in a prepared manner. House Llodos, right? I've never thought a day when the counselor of House Llodos would talk to a vagrant like me with such a humble tone, John said. 200 years are enough to change everything, my friend. Even though Llodos will remain Llodos, they were taught a tough lesson. The old woman said, I just thought, what if Queen Berenzia and King Helseth were still among their family? They wouldn't have let such a thing happen, right? John asked. What do you know about them? The old woman asked with clear interest. The Queen Mother of Mournhold and her son King Helseth are known to be as exemplary Hlaelis. I actually quite fond of the Queen and consider the book series, The Real Berenzia, to be one of my most favorite books out there. The old woman laughed and shook her head. But the Queen and her son disappeared many years ago. Where do you think they are now? The old woman asked. Beats me. I actually asked around in the historical records of Winterhold and some of the refugee populace without any result. But knowing the Queen to an extent, she won't just sit idly by, she must be out there cooking up her plans back to power. Oh, good thinking. Queen Berenzia and her son King Helseth are knowing to be a pair of very capable dark elven mother and son who would do anything to keep power to their hands. John was quite fond with the Queen, as any young man who grew up in Riften where the Queen did, and joined the Thieves' Guild like her too. The Queen was also known to be a playgirl with a long list of lovers that include a nightingale thief and none other than Emperor Tiber Septim himself. John always took pride in thinking of himself as the male version of her. I will say good night for today. My old bones are not still that young anymore and I need to sleep. The old woman said, walking away to her room. The ones remaining in the meeting room were John, Miranda, and Isha, who was awfully silent. Dude, what's up? John called for Isha. Nothing. But you became all gloomy and dispirited all of a sudden. It is Mirren. Huh, he said. I am a good friend. John then realized why Isha was so silent. Oh, poor girl, you were friend-zoned? Yes. What's a friend-zone? Miranda asked. It is a realm on Oblivion similar to the Soul Cairn but for the broken heart. Very dark, very cold. John said dramatically. Oh, sorry about that, Isha. You are nice to my brother but he is a little oblivious. Miranda said. It is okay, John said. I've always considered the friend zone to be just the start. Even in the deepest abyss, there is hope, Isha. How? I always think of being friend-zoned is the stage where one has to prove their worth. You can't just go and say, hey, I like you and expect some ass. You need to earn the ass in that friend-zone period. It is your opportunity to build up a good relationship. Oh. So to get Mirren's ass I need to play slow. Yes, start from being a friend and climb up the ladder. Whoa, Krylin. I mean John Dare. You really deserve your reputation for being a playboy. Okay, go to hell. Right away. Isha's face brightened up and went away happily. John and Miranda were the only ones remaining on the table. John looked at her and winked. Good night, Mr. John. You are a good friend. No. John Dare doesn't get friend-zoned. Just until you become healthy. Good night. You hear me? John Dare doesn't get friend-zoned. Chapter 420 The Dragon Heart Flaming Core. Northwest to Narses, there was a large lake known as Lake Llodos. The place was tranquil, and not much happened there. Feeling the quietness away from the bustling town, John sat on a small piece of land in lotus position. In front of him was a smithing anvil. He put an uneven glowing red stone on the anvil, then a hammer and a gauntlet appeared on his right. He slowly raised the hammer and clank, crack. The glowing stone turned to powder and its energy flowed to the anvil, that shock from the excessive power. John hurriedly switched the hammer to a dagger with a blue crystal blade and touched the anvil with it, making it all the excessive energy flow into the dagger and from it to the gauntlet. Groan. The natural podomic energy was very hard to capture, and refining one's body and soul with it is a pain. John's bones, skin and blood needed to be ready for a much harsher process that comes next. The first major stage in this sort of meditative training technique is called the dragon robbing stage. It is consisted of 10 levels. The purpose of that stage is to upgrade the soul for a certain quality in the terms of vitality and magicka by a method energy gathering to reflect the upgrading effect on the body, and that takes us to the next realm. The dragon frame stage is when the soul has reached its limit and the body is ready to upgrade. It is consisted of 3 minor stages known as iron bone, jade skin and ebon blood with 10 levels each. A body at the late dragon frame stage is the complete form of a human body. In the past few months, John was diligently training like mad and used rare resources and precious materials to reach the late dragon frame stage. For that reason, he was normally full dressed to avoid anyone getting a look under the hood. Right at this moment, John was aiming for one thing, and that is to break through the bottleneck of the dragon frame stage and attain a higher level of power. He didn't know what lies next, but his intuition told him to stay away from civilization when it happens. As the vital podomic energy was his base training energy, Morrowind was his best training place for the existence of the Red Mountain, which is a massive generator of podomic energy. This means John's power is bound to jump by leaps and bounds, since he was training as if his life is dependent on it. Time passed and his concentration deepened. A day passed, phenomenons started to appear in the lake. Despite being a large body of water, this kind of lake doesn't necessarily have tides and waves. But last night was a completely different story. The people of Narses noticed the unnatural moves, and by the second day, the water became a bit violent. Such an accident would make the town go in panic, but the old woman made it clear that one of the people responsible for saving the town is having an important period of his training in the middle of the lake to not cause inconvenience in town. John was really honest with her about the fact. At the third day, the water was clearly unnatural, as it wasn't just violent waves, but as if something was trapped under the water surface and keeps hitting the water screen from beneath the surface. Even the old woman herself had to climb a tower and look deep into the lake by magic. Most certainly, the cause of the violent pulses in the lake was a certain Nord welding a Dwemer hammer and striking down some red stones. It seems that the anvil was broken in half too, so he had to use rocks from the lake, which caused the violent movements of water. However, the first 3 days were one thing and the fourth was a completely different story. The lake was tranquil in the morning, but as soon as the time of noon came, the sky darkened all of a sudden, and it seemed to be an out-of-season thunderstorm. The people locked their doors on themselves, but a few curious ones could link the untimely even with the mage in the lake. John was sitting in a swirl of podomic energy and making a steady advance to the next stage. Up in the sky, the storm started to develop, a tornado descending right on John. This was a natural response from the world at someone breaking the rules of the Mundus. To John, sending a tornado at him was a mere child play compared to that other time, but what made this one different was what happened next. A spark of fire broke in the tornado, and as if it is some flammable substance, the tornado became all fiery red and pressured John to the max. John started to lose concentration, but he put his hands together and connected the pressure points in his palms and finger together, forming a strange hand gesture to maintain his inner flow. The firestorm on his head started to get fiercer by the second. John could barely summon Krylon to increase his resistance to the elements and greed for protection. And so, the long battle began. The difference between attaining temporary connection with the orbic energy and looking at the tower like the tribunal is different from trying to harvest that energy for oneself, and so the retaliation of the world was different. At the 5th day, John was already powerful enough to finish up. He attained enough power to push the world back. He got ready for what comes next and made the first wave of retaliation at the world's suppression. At that point, his heart felt strange. All the energy in his channels and energy center gathered on his heart, and it became as if a fire broke in there. The heat coming from his heart was something else entirely, not even his whole being can withstand. While pushing the suppression from above by willpower and his heart from within by endurance, John arrived at enlightenment. He saw a strange scenery of a world, as if very under the sea surface, but what surrounded him was energy rather than water. The phenomenon didn't last for a few seconds before he was back to his surroundings with no storm above his head or anything. Even the piece of land he was on seemed to have sunken down. John looked around and wondered. What just happened? Sadly, there was no one to answer him. He was somehow completely naked with a charred fabric on his shoulder. John frowned and looked at Greed beside him. Didn't I say protect me? Sorry, Greed noises. Okay, just cover me for now. John investigated his energy center to find a strange anomaly. It was somehow connected to his heart, and his heart hand a strong vibe of flame energy along with strong pulses. The phenomenon was questionable, but there were things like that mentioned about the ones who attain a high level of magic and extend their lives by hundreds of years. This was called the spirit spark. Like how the spirits of the world have spirit sparks for hearts, the practitioner of the arcane arts may attain a spirit spark in their hearts, just like Lorcan, whose divine spark was the heart of Lorcan. Now, as far as John could tell, the spirit sparks is connected to the elements, judging by the suppression of the world that came as a firestorm. John's energy became condensed in his heart, becoming some sort of a center or a core. The Dragon Heart Stage, the Flaming Core level. John concluded the name. There seem to be no bottlenecks until the next breakthrough, but that will require a vast amount of time and energy. I guess this is the early Flaming Core then. System, run a full diagnosis. Loading. 10%. 46%. 86%. 100%. Diagnosis complete. A new powers discovered. Status. Equals. Aptitude. Nord. Firemane. The Serpent. Ozidal's Genius. Eternal Flesh. Disease immunity. Passive. Eternal Flesh. Disease immunity. Do I get tastier? Negative. Curse you, but I guess I won't get sick now. Which means lycanthropy and vampirism are also impossible. This also means that he became more immune to disease than Isha and the old woman who trained under special circumstances to resist poisons. Right. How much time passed? 1 week. Oops. You are awfully late, Isha said. What were you doing in the lake? I was playing in the water. That doesn't explain the firestorm and the waves and the rain and everyone in the town is asking what on Nern you were doing. I'm not even interested to explain myself. Where are the old woman and the rest? They are back at Mournhold. The Tong agents were able to locate Gollum. In Ter. No, Shadowfen. He seems to be amassing a force with Argonians and contacted the Thalmor. Morrowind didn't respond. Not really. As long as there are no movements in the No Man's Land, the Dunmer army is stationed in Tal'Dic Fortress. What about Old Cat? She wants his head on a plate, but she has nothing but her Tong and House Lalu, so she can never go on offense. She seems to have connections but wants you to get things done. This has dragged longer than we thought. Did Bothia say anything about her rogue champion? Nope, but the cult of Bothia is very clear about killing him. They just want someone strong enough to replace him. This is where I come in then. But the ones who employ Gollum are the Argonians of Tyr and House Drays. I think we should hit them first. John decided. Any plan? John thought for a while, then smiled. Have you ever seen a blue cold flame that can't be extinguished eating an entire city? P4 tray 0n. Goal, +4 extra. Next, +6 extra. Pat/Rayon. Com/Eldokmizi, remove/. PayPal, +$10 equals extra. PayPal. Me/Eldokmizi. Extras by votes. 5,000/8,000. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7S. Twitter. @Eldokmizi22. Chapter 421 Blue Fire in the Marsh. For hundreds of years, Tyr City was controlled by the great House Drays. Now and for the past 190 years, Tyr became an Argonian territory. Throughout history, Tyr was the purgatory of the Saxhleel race, Argonians, and House Drays was nothing but the bane of their kind. The slavery to the so-called lesser races was a common practice in the societies of the elves, and houses like Drays and Telvanni were really invested in slavery. When the Oblivion Crisis struck 200 years ago, the Empire was weakened and the Imperial Province of Morrowind got its defense legion pulled back to Cyrodiil. Followed by the destruction of Vivec and the Red Year, Morrowind was one of the nations that suffered the most. On the other hand, the Argonians pushed the Daedra back during the Oblivion Crisis and managed to establish their Unveil government that formed a strong army and went against Morrowind, sacking it to Vardenfell. Houses Drays, Telvanni and Hlalu were hit badly in the process, but House Reduran united the other houses in one army and pushed the Argonian back beyond Mournhold to Dishan. The war may have ended, but the southern half of Dishan became a no-man's land only with Narses and Mournhold on a side and Tyr on the other. The area in between became desolate, swampy, waste and filled with baleful energy from all the death throughout the years. Who thinks that the war between Morrowind and Black Marsh is over can't be more wrong. To make a statement, the Argonians would send a horde of their troops every year to fight the Dunmer just to make sure that Morrowind's power do not increase and to keep culling its strength. That's why Tyr City was an important Argonian stronghold and a strategic city-state. They weeded out every Dunmer trace and built their mud huts and pyramid temples all around the place. The city that was once their kind's nightmare became their shield, and the Hist of Tyr became a big tree that would produce a lot of sap daily. The Hist is the one of the main pillars in the Argonian society. They are sentient trees with large trunks that provide the Argonians with mystical powers and take part in the leading of the society. The Hist trees also worship Sithis, the spirit of the great chaos. Aside from that, the Argonians are good at crafting jewelry and possess a natural resistance to disease, one of the reasons why their country was famous for using diseases as defensive measurements. All in all, the Argonians were very wary and protective of what they hold. Tyr City is their stronghold and the Hist is their spiritual guide. A few weeks ago, the governor of Tyr made a connection with an orc tribe that also had odds with the Dunmare. The Argonians and the orcs agreed to take down Narses to push the Dunmare back, as their activities have increased in Dishon, and some were kidnapped. To make a mole inside the Dunmare, reached out to the inner politics and thought of using Dunmare to get rid of Dunmare, and House Drays and Hlalu were great candidates for the fight. By hiring a mole inside, they found out who is the supporter of Narses and tried to eliminate her, but she was too slimy. Their plans went in shambles until the Hist interfered and suggested to use an old disease. With some tricks, the plague was spread successfully, and they waited for House Drays to take part and then trigger a hidden factor in the plague and create a breakout that would swallow the whole population of Narses and would spread north. But that didn't work for some reason. No matter what, the Argonians and the Hist of Tyr wouldn't stop before they could carve a big scar on the Dunmare. The thing they didn't see coming was someone crossing the infested marshlands and hiding among their numbers, waiting for an opportunity to return the favor. Tyr's current architecture style is Argonian. The common folk would live in houses made of mud, and the important buildings were built by stone on a style similar to the Aztec. In the center of the city lied the Hist Grove, where a single towering tree standing on its roots with a very thick trunk that looked similar to the African baobab tree. The tree was all time guarded by the root preservers and Hist menders. Argonians would come and visit it to lick its roots for healing purposes or drink the sap, which causes various effects. Among it is switching gender. At day, the Hist Grove have visitors, and at night, the Hist menders and the Hist speaker work to maintain the tree and the sap pool beneath it. One night, however, things were about to face a change. The Argonians were not aware of the beast among them veiled in shade. At that night, the walls of Dishon saw blue flickers of flame walking on the marsh. Looking closer, the shape resembled a skeleton, or was rather one. That skeleton on blue fire ran to the wall like mad and targeted the gate. "Something is wrong. Stop that!" The Argonian guards screamed in their gel language, and intended to shoot the running skeleton only to stop it by a few meters from the wall. The bike flames on the skeleton seemed to be hard to extinguish, but that wasn't the time. They needed to inform their superiors. Just as they were doing so, 2 more skeletons appeared, and the same scenario repeated itself. Blue flames, skeletons, and shooting. 4 others appeared. The guards became anxious, but their superiors were already here and magic was cast to stop the skeletons. Then it was 8. The situation started to become strange, and the Argonians started to prepare for more assaults. 16 skeletons. If this kept going on, then it would become something very alarming. 32 skeletons. Controlling such a number means the mage is quite capable. The city was alarmed. 64. By that time, no one hoped for more waves. Just the idea of scouting what's down there became unbearable. Some skeletons even exploded on the gate. 128. That's not a number any mage can make. The city is under attack, and the whole town felt it. A bitter fight started, but the Enzylil wizards were not some weaklings. 256. The situation was alarming. Some guards waited for the wave to end and ran down the walls to see who is in the marsh before the next wave starts, but only their screams in the darkness answered the ones on the city. 512. The whole town screamed in panic, and the guards were all pulled on the walls. The mages started a defensive formation and prepare for a bitter fight. What kind of magicka did the other party possess to be able to summon such an army? Truth be told, that was John's limit, but now all the Argonians were pulled to the walls right where he wants them to be. The next wave was not 1,000 skeleton, but rather a flock of cold flame atronachs that took various shape. Some were birds, some were animals. At the Hist Grove, the root preservers and the Hist menders stood their grounds, for their sacred duty is to guard the history. Around the areas surrounding the grove, things started to change. Explosions and screams. The blue flame skeletons appeared inside the city, and not even the Hist saw that one coming. The root preservers tensed up and got ready to fight whatever menace comes. But menace was just too big. Behind the building appeared a 4 meters giant clad in blue flames and holding a large spear. By bark and root. What is that? The root preservers were just too terrified by the giant demon that appeared. Fight it? How? The thing was just too big. Those of them who could use magic aimed their hands forward anew, cast whatever spell they could cast. Whatever kind of flame it is, frost can at least put it down, but it was the opposite. As the root preservers struggled, one of them turned tail and walked the other direction to where the hist menders were. Guard, what is it? Why don't you assist, you bro? // 9 hist menders were cut down on the spot without realizing what hit them. The root preserver that killed them had a large ebony blade on his shoulder. Still no more awakening? What a nasty blade! He said as he walked towards the hist veiled in his greed. He stepped on a root and walked on it until he reached the trunk. On his other hand, a small staff appeared. He made the staff's head touch the blade's side and dragged it fast all the way to the tip as if he is lighting a match. Instantly, the whole blade was caught on blue fire. He pointed the tip at the tree and stabbed it all the way in. He could feel his magicka burning inside the tree. As he pulled out the blade, he narrowed his eyes. Excellent work, child. Check. Awakening, 5/10. It seemed that stabbing the hist tree has caused the blade to react better than what he expected. The blade was halfway awakened, but its sharpness tore through the trunk as if tofu. Please don't take it personally. You shouldn't have attacked Narcissus. I know it was you who caused the Llodos plague to skip a stage and turned people into husks. Maybe it is the hist speaker who did so, but still, this will send a clear message. John said and turned around, but Nefertiti stopped him. She possessed his ears and made him hear things. I see, so it is that way. The thing I call Shadow World is actually the Chaos World, where this world is reflected on the Sea of Void which connects all worlds, times and realities. Which means the Chaos World is the side of Sithis. The no-existence, the undoing, the fate of Lyg continent of the previous Culpa. Why share your secrets with me? Your killer. I see. You sensed me. You think I should fear that? Sadly, your words are wasted on me. I have one iron rule: break what you hit, for the blame is one and the same. You should have hit harder, History. Maybe your retribution wouldn't have come this way. John walked away from the hist burning by the blue flames. His appearance went unnoticed until the damage was done. Away from him, Wrath, you seem to have slaughtered all the root preservers and began attacking the town. This is enough, John said. The city was starting to burn in blue flames, and the sky was dyed by the azure color. John erased all evidence and escaped silently without teleporting to not be sensed or followed. Now that the hist Iftir is dead, the forest under its control is no longer supporting the Argonians, and southern Dishan is accessible. Also, the Argonians will be busy with Tyr and may force Gollum to make a move in the open. A week later, it all happened. A force of Reduran guards came looking for Krylin and the old woman. Gollum has kidnapped the Imperial envoy and some other Dunmare nobles. He wants to exchange them for Krylin and the old woman. P4 Tray 0N. Goal, +4 extra and next, +5 extra. Patreon. com/Eldokmizi, remove. PayPal, +$10 equals extra. PayPal. me/Eldokmizi. Extras by votes. 5,000/8,000. Discord. GG/GKCKVA7S. Twitter. @Eldokmizi22. You're tuning in to the Phoenix Knights YouTube channel. Don't forget to subscribe and join us on this journey to catch the most captivating stories.